Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As Richard always says, these are the diehards, right? The GIS Forum diehard. This is the true group, right? This is the group. This is where we make all the important decisions for the whole, next year and planning out. So thank you so much for coming here on Friday. Who was not here this week? Okay, great. And everyone else was attending the forum. Excellent. Thank you for coming. This is technically our fourth quarter GIS community meeting. This is a series that we have throughout the year that Laura and her team will talk to you a little bit more about at the end of this session, but we really appreciate you coming today. If you haven't signed in yet, this is a separate, kind of registration for our records compared to the forum. So if you didn't sign in at the front table when you came in this morning, please do that before you leave today. You don't have to go out there right now, but please put your name on there and let us know. So a little bit about this morning. Of course, here we are at the Common Center. We do rotate the location of our community meetings, if you weren't aware of that. So here we are at the wonderful Commons Conference Center, where we've held the forum for the past 30 plus years. It's a great facility for us to have these types of meetings in. But if you have a facility that at your place of work, in the Austin area, that you'd like us to hold a community meeting, please reach out to us and let us know. I just realized I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Gayla Mullins, and I'm with the Texas Geographic Information Office. Most of our Texas Geographic Information Office staff are sitting right over here. Raise your hands. So again, if you need to contact any of us for anything, please let us know. But this is the group, formerly Tenris. Just a little recap of the week. What was your favorite event? You want to go ahead and shout that out? Birds aren't real. Professor Suri's keynote. Being together. Anything else? Johnny Cupcakes. Vendor exhibits, yeah. Cool t-shirts. Jedi Journey to Jedi Master, okay. Enterprise Integration. I missed that one, but sorry I missed that one. Oh, okay, yes, okay. I saw a really cool talk on EV, electric vehicle infrastructure plan from TxDOT. That was really cool. So, and lots of really great content. So we really encourage you all to submit for a presentation next year. So watch for our information when that goes out for the forum for next October. Okay, so and then we did end up with 410 to about 425 registrants. So that was really good. Yeah. And that's technically the highest registration of just regular registration. We did have one year that was a little higher, but we had a kind of a 2-for-1 deal going on that year. So yeah, we've exceeded that goal, which is amazing. So thank you all. So a little bit about today. So we, of course, have our opening remarks right now, and then Richard's going to talk about our federal activity updates and the things he's doing as now the new president as of September of the National States Geographic Information Council, which is our nation's coordination body for GIS. And then we're going to go into our state initiatives, data priorities with our strategic mapping program team and our geographic infrastructure and technology team led by Joe Sepulveda, and then our design, innovation, and marketing team led by Laura Sepulveda. We'll talk about our branding, events, and engagement. Do not wait until 11:30 to give an open discussion or remarks. That is only there as kind of a buffer placeholder, as we are discussing and, we, might start to run over a little bit. We won't keep you past 12, I promise that. But please be engaged. This is intended to be interactive. We want your feedback. This is the point of this session, is to be able to let us know what you're thinking, let each other know what you're thinking or what you might have for each other as we're going through the various topics this morning. So just think of perhaps the topics that we're discussing as just like a tipping point for the things that we need and want to talk about this morning. And we do need to have the institute the mic rule. So because we are recording this session, thank you Brock Wade for recording this session. Very close member of Richard's family. And so we have the catch boxes, so we can come around. We have those 2 catch boxes and this mic. So please, I know we do want you to talk, but please wait till you got a mic, and we can throw those around. Anything I missed for y'all? Okay. Well, we're going, or does anyone have any questions while I'm talking about how interactive this is supposed to be? Okay. Well, we'll move on to Richard.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody had a great 2 days. I know I sure did. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you guys. And again, I don't get a chance to normally at these sessions get a chance to have conversations with you guys because I'm usually running around. But it's been really wonderful to speak to you all. So. As Gayla said, this is intended to be kind of it's intended to be an open discussion here because what we really want to do is start to understand the needs that you guys need. We're obviously going to give you what we've been doing, but we also really want to know, are we doing things correctly in your eyes, and do we need to make some adjustments? So what I want to talk to you about is my involvement now, or I should say, Texas's involvement with NSGIC, which is the National States Geographic Information Council. And it's a community of people that's going to be a lot like this community here, except it's nationwide. It's something that I think, as we do things, you always kind of realize you work in a vacuum, but you got people who rely on your data that may not necessarily be in your state. They may be your state neighbors. And a disaster specifically don't happen in one state only. Hurricanes will hit the borders and they'll, do all kinds of things, and then people have to cross states and say, can I have your information because that's important to what I'm going to be doing. So NSGIC actually started in 1991 with a group of like-minded people. And if anybody can kind of put themselves back 32 years ago, what 91 was like in GIS, we were worried about projections. We were worried about, do we have data? Do roads connect? We were looking at things like, Tiger files and census dime files and stuff as your base. And so a couple of people who just kind of decided to sit around and, draw out like, what do we need to be doing to coordinate at the national level? And so in 91, they kind of came up with like a back of the napkin charter of how to put together a group that can talk about these kinds of issues. So this is the actual photo of the first 38 full members from around the state. There was no GIO back then. It was just people who were interested in the technology, and there was maybe 1 or 2 in each state that kind of understood what GIS was doing. So I think it's kind of really cool to see this type of history. The mission of NSGIC is I'm not necessarily going to read this. The mission of NSGIC is basically everything we do here is coordination. So, it's a state-led entity basically, which exchanges geospatial technology and ideas across each other and see if they can, see where the common thread is. They facilitate connections between those. So, the state's got a problem, another state has a solution. You want to get them together and you want to get them talking. That's still kind of the mantra as it is today, and that's what the mission was back in 1991. And let me move this mouse out of the way. Oh, it is out of the way. Okay. They also pursue geospatial advocacy. And this is kind of a big one because when states are talking, they need federal support, specifically when it becomes more of a national effort. It's like, well, we can do all this stuff, but what's the feds doing to help us maybe create some sort of an infrastructure by which we can put all this on or whatever. So we need to advocate for things at the national level that's going to support our activities. And that's something we've been working with, but it's been kind of slow coming. So that's been primarily the mission of NSGIC. And if you kind of look at these slides, it looks very similar to what we've been doing here. You got in the upper right corner, on the upper left corner, you just see people listening to other people talking about conversation and having, this is what we're up to, this is what we're doing. And people kind of get a sense of what other states are doing. We also have the ability to do these panel sessions there on the right-hand side where people might have a solution and other states who have used and utilized that solution. So I think that's, real important for people to understand what how did you solve it and who did you solve it with. There on the bottom left, that's actually Brandon Palin over here from Ecopia doing a presentation talking about some of the technologies they have that can actually help us. And the reason I put that slide in there is because Ecopia is one of those companies that, a couple of years ago I didn't even know anything about, and now have made a really big kind of input into NSGIC and gotten people excited, and is now working for the state of Texas on a couple of ideas. And so this is kind of that example of that coordination happening, and then other people getting excited about they got a solution, it's working for us, may work for you too. And then we get these one-on-ones where you have these two states who work together. This is Kansas and Arkansas, and on the bottom side here, actually reviewing ideas that are unique to them, and that really, really works because that resonates. That's exactly what this is designed to do. And then, of course, what we do is then the states all get together with nobody else in the room, and we talk openly about our issues. And so it's kind of a big gathering of different ways of meeting and making sure that you can talk openly and that you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever. And so we get in a closed room, and we call it our caucus. So it's quite interesting on how this all works. I apologize for this slide. It seems to have overrun itself. But so on the initiatives, basically, we talk about everything that's happening now. We talk about 3-depth. We talk about, our processes in transportation. We talk about geo-enabled elections. Geo-women is a real big topic at NSGIC. We talk about next-gen 911, parcel data, address data, all that stuff that you are familiar with today. But it's interesting that a lot of states are not there. They don't have this information, or they don't have it collected correctly or whatever. And so they're working really, really hard. And that's exactly what we try to facilitate. So there's something also, too, that NSGIC does, and that they basically, they give us a report card. It's independent. We don't grade ourselves. I mean, we are interviewed, and we fill out a series of questions, and then they interview us again, and then they basically grade you as a state, how well you're doing. And this is an example of that grading system. This is actually from 2 years ago because the map for this year has not come out. But at that time, Texas was sitting at a B+. Before that, we were at a B, and before that, I think we were in a D category. So we've been progressively making steady progress. And I'm very happy to say that, and this is hard to see, but I'm very happy to say that our newest grade is an A-. So thanks to you guys. It's pretty hard to get an A-. We do know where we're lacking, but we're talking really, really closely with you guys about how to even get higher than that. We're looking at next-gen 911 activities. We're working to get more local data sets pulled together, for you, and so you'll learn a little bit about that as we move on. So I'm very proud of that grade. It's not, we're inching up, but we need to, we're not going to be happy till we're top of the charts, but we are in the upper echelon for sure. So we have a website that we put together brand new that basically kind of facilitates. It's like a curated set of data. And this gives us our, if we have a strategic plan or our annual reports and any other information like our contract information or whatever, we post out there so other states can access it, and they can use that to help move their missions along at their states. So I think it's really, really critical that we have a kind of a facilitated area where this all happens. And then this is also a place where states can post a question. Hey, I'm looking for anybody. Has anybody ever done a letter to their governor that needed funding, and what does that look like or whatever? Then people will go, yeah, I've done it, and they'll post out there. And so it's kind of like a bulletin board for all the GIOs around the country. So it's a really, really nice site, and it continues to be developed. We also have every state has a profile, and it really gives those details about what each state is interested in, what we're doing well, and what we need help with. And that's also a place where those reports and everything reside. And this is, a lot of this is open to the general public, but some of it is behind a login that only the states can use. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the goals that I'm working on for this year. And NSGIC does not have a comprehensive strategic plan. And they've been around since '91, and not a formal plan has been produced. And you can kind of tell what's going to happen. If you don't have a plan, you're kind of all over the place. Well, that's what we are. So next month on November 14th, 15th, and 16th, I'm headed to Kansas City. We're going to meet with the 3 presidents, myself and 2 others, President-elect and past president. And we're bringing a couple of other folks down from the board. And we're going to hash out a start of a strategic plan. And hopefully by the end of my term, that plan will be out there, and it'll set some true direction for NSGIC. A lot of it's going to be kind of just copied of what we've been doing here. So, there's a reason that they've asked me to run for president, and I take that seriously. And I think the things that we've accomplished here, I'm going to take to NSGIC and see if we can accomplish them there too. We're going to launch and we already started this process, but we're going to launch a National Geospatial Consortium, which is a 501c3, and I'm not going to get into all the legal stuff, but basically a 501c3 lets us pursue grants more effectively than NSGIC, which is a 501c6. So a 501c6 can do lobbying, and they can get some grants, but the way funding works and how you can accept funding from whom is different than a 501c3. So we're not even quite set up correctly to take on money and to do things we need to do to help our own cause. And so this consortium is going to be a kind of an add-on group to NSGIC to go after those grants, funnel them up to NSGIC, and then NSGIC will produce those. We hope to have this NGC, the consortium, set up by the first of the year. So I'm excited about that. We're also going to be developing advocacy. Now, advocacy's been around since the inception, but the problem with it is that it's all over the place. Advocacy means different things to different people. It's never been really defined. It's not being done well. Pardon. It's not being done well, but it's important. And so what we've done is we've halted our advocacy committee for now, and we started an advocacy steering work group that's going to start to drive the advocacy from the internal out versus being outward in, and that seems to be how it's been going. So those 3 alone are going to take a full year to get rolling, but we've already set up we've almost set up that advocacy steering committee. That should be set up by the end of next week. Sorry. But it's going to be very, very important, because then whatever happens there is we can now go to the national level and we can advocate for things that we really need, and we can do it in a way that is important to NSGIC, and it's also important to other organizations that want to join NSGIC.
There's some water over here.
Yeah, I might need some here. Thank you. So bottom line, NSGIC is growing. It's a really, really good group, but it's a little bit discombobulated with how it works. And so we're hoping to really structure it a little bit better. And I just wanted to reach out to just Brandon, if you had any thoughts, because you're kind of you see it from a business perspective, but you guys have been kind of an up-and-coming group, and I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts to NSGIC. If somebody could give him a mic. He's in the corner. Right.
So it really is that opportunity to get access to information that sometimes cumbersome to get access to, who you know who to reach out to. So you have a very unique opportunity with Richard being at the helm now. Take advantage of it.
Thank you, Brendan. And you're right. There's a huge federal component too, which is we need to get better at addressing our federal partners, USGS, FEMA, folks like that, NOAA, and I think we're making progress there. But the problem is again, it's not necessarily structured, so we're going to try to do a better job at that. And that's good because I'm out of time. That's all I have, and I'm about to have a coughing attack, so I apologize.
Oh, no.
So, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Anybody want to mic up? We go. Thank you. Colorado did not participate at that point. That was 2 years ago. We're working on them. Yeah, sometimes when you don't have a GIO, or you got multiple companies or multiple agencies, it's hard to get all the information together. So, yep. I'm sorry. Okay, I think. Okay, John.
Hey, Richard, real quick, is any update on the geo-enabled elections and redistricting efforts?
Can you repeat that?
Any updates on the geo-enabled elections and redistricting?
Yeah, so the geo-enabled elections, so we did go through the first cycle of it, and we are looking to revive it. The organizations or the states that actually were able to do it were very successful at it. Clearly, there are some states like Texas where anytime you talk about you're going to be working in geo-enabled elections, it causes a political issue. And so what we're trying to do is kind of create a phase 2 out of that. And hopefully we can get a little bit more funding, and we're going to, the goal is to start a phase 2 for geo-enabled elections. Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So I was wondering if any type of youth type outreach is on y'all's radar, as we continue to grow as a profession. We want to encourage the youth to get involved.
Right.
And Janny Fung is starting an advisory council, for a geospatial advisory council for that. So if you needed some more resources, as you're going and presenting that information, I'm sure that the input would be greatly valued as we continue to grow together.
Absolutely. So to answer your question, the youth side of things is being done, of course, at the state level, but it's being brought up to NSGIC as what our state's doing to support the youth effort so other states can follow through. Texas does not do necessarily the best job at that, and we have been talking to folks around here recently about improving that. And so one of the thoughts is that on the youth side, John and I had a brief conversation, but we're going to be talking more, is that we really want to get the youth involved more at the high school level. One of the thoughts was definitely, and I guess I'll try to go in this without getting too in the weeds, but the issue about school safety is becoming a big thing. If you want the government to fix it, it's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that we need to fix it ourselves as professionals in this room. Why not get the kids involved in mapping their own schools? Make that a project for them and put it in the high school criteria. Let them be responsible for their own safety. Let every class that comes in as a senior to update the maps every year. And when those maps are updated, you go to the middle schools and they map those too. And then you go to the elementary schools. And so every year you map the schools. And that becomes that basically becomes the safety mechanism that gets put out there. And we've been talking to ACC. We've got a couple of partners in the room here that are going to help us with that. We have our HDR, and Thomas Brown has set up our first meeting with Del Valley, and we're going to have a conversation with the school district there and see what they think of the idea. We're going to bring law enforcement in and have them help us define it. And I think that's a really good way, so that there's no lose here, because that helps our industry, that educates our kids, that makes them responsible for that. And in addition, they come out with the knowledge of GIS, fairly sophisticated knowledge. Who's to say they can't map the outside and start droning and doing other things? And then they become in the workforce and they populate a group like this. So that's a thought, and that's where we're going. So I think that's kind of one way. And then what we want to do is, if we're successful here, you know, we've already chatted about it at NSGIC, and so I think others are kind of watching Texas to see how we perform. And hopefully we'll have good news for them, and we can make some great things happen. So I hope that answers your question.
We had one student that was registered, one high school student registered for the forum this week. I thought that was really cool. So if you're a parent of high school students or up and coming, you know, think of that as an option. Maybe they can take a day off from school and come over here. You can talk with their geographer or computer science teachers to come over here and learn some more. There's also a great presentation this week on the Z-axis and indoor mapping for 911 by Geocom, so that was really interesting as well. So there's a lot of people, and Esri has more, do more indoor mapping technology available to us. So yeah, that's.
I do think it's getting actually quite, there are different organizations and different companies that want in on this too. You know, they're not looking to make money, they're looking to just solve a problem, and I think that's the beauty of this community too. So yes.
Yeah, Richard, I think that's amazing. So at the City of Austin, we've been talking about as a pilot for indoor mapping, starting with the ISDs. So if you are talking to any of them in Travis County, please loop us in.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah. There was
Luis Sias with the Texas Highway Patrol. We've been collecting floor plans and a bunch of school data, and we have a full map that we use for all of our troopers that they have access to. And we're working with a company where they have geo-referenced TIFs floor plans of every school, but the school has to maybe pay for that to happen, but then we can ingest it, and then we can also deploy it to other resources. So I think this is a conversation that the Highway Patrol definitely wants to be involved in.
perfect. We're definitely looking for law enforcement's involvement, because if we create it but y'all can't use it, it's no good, right? So. We need to have more of a conversation with that. So we're going to be storyboarding out these ideas, and then from that we're going to just try to figure out the best way to get them implemented and so forth. So stay tuned, because you'll be hearing more about that. Brent?
Yeah, it's kind of back to the original topic about reaching out to kids, but one of the cool things they do out at the International Investor Conference is they have like a family evening or a family night or a family event too. So
that's a good idea.
For this,
Yeah.
it would be kind of interesting to have kind of like a window of family and
Yes.
kids, you know, to try to draw in kids into the event.
That's a great idea. Brent, do you remember, I think when Marcy was doing this, that we would have like Teacher Day or something like that? Yeah, that's something that, you know, continues to resonate with me as well. The only issue with Teacher Day or Kid Day is that you kind of have to have them on the weekend, because this is happening during the week. So I think I'm running out of time here, but feel free to talk to me kind of afterwards or whatever. If y'all want to bring it up during general discussion, we can have a little bit more conversation. But I'm excited about that. So I appreciate it. I'm proud to represent Texas at NSGIC, and a lot of the ideas that we've done here successfully we're going to carry upwards. So thank y'all so much. Joey, are you next? Turn it over to Joey Thomas.
Hey, while Joey's getting set up, I failed to mention that there is no scheduled break this morning. So if you need, this is a come and go. So if you need to step out for a bit and come back in, feel free to do that. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings or anything. Right, Joey?
Yes, definitely. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I am Joey Thomas. I am the Strategic Mapping Program Manager. And I just want to give you guys an update about the StratMap program, and we'll have the rest of our team up here talking about their specific areas. Is it? Oh, I'm just not holding it close enough. Sorry. But yeah, just to start off with, we'll be talking a little bit about the StratMap contracts, and then we'll be moving into some of the base layer data sets that we work with: orthoimagery, elevation, hydrography, land parcels, address points, And we'll also be talking a little bit about land cover this morning as well. So for anybody who's not familiar with the strategic mapping program, it is our job to maintain, acquire, and set standards for base layer data in the state of Texas. We try to define common mapping standards across the state, as well as attract partnerships and do cost shares and help administer those DIR StratMap contracts. And we are growing. We had our funding established back a number of years back, and it's been continuing. We also have a strategic mapping account that we use to help support mapping activities around the states. We continue to have increased partnerships from local, federal, and regional government entities, as well as our team. Our team has been growing. We now have 5 members of StratMap who each focus on certain areas of the state and the data sets that we acquire. And we're also increasing the number of data sets that we're seeking partnerships and acquiring across the state. Our program goals are to maintain the data for the state, to increase partnership opportunities and cost shares, to develop new data sets, and then we're also in the near future hopefully going to have a projects page, hopefully sometime next year or the following year, where you can keep track and have a little more transparency about what projects we're doing around the state, as well as additional feedback opportunities that we can use to, find out what data sets are important to you and what or if any modifications to any data sets need to happen to make them more applicable for various agencies. Just to give you an idea of how the StratMap program is doing, we currently have had over 80 agencies that have partnered with us for data acquisition projects. We currently have 42 agencies that are participating in the Texas Imagery Service program. And we have 285 agencies that have contributed data to our program as well. So we're doing really well, but I know that we can do more and we can reach more people and get better data for the state. The main method by which we acquire these data sets and do these partnerships is through the DIR GIS hardware, software, and services contracts. And the main goal of that is to pool resources and lower cost, ensure higher quality data services with statements of work that have technical specifications in them. As well as a big one is to save time. These contracts save a ton of time. You don't have to do individual contracts with vendors. The contracts already exist. All you got to do is cut a PO and reference the contract. So it saves everybody a bunch of time. You don't need to get lawyers involved. It's a great program, and I encourage anybody to use the StratMap contracts. We're currently in the 3rd round of cooperative contracts that we've done with the strategic mapping program. The last 2 cycles have been with DIR, and the current cycle we're in right now is running from 2021 to 2026. We anticipate that DIR will reopen that contract opportunity through an RFO in fall 2024 or very early 2025, and that would be the opportunity for additional vendors and existing vendors to reapply for that contract. We currently have 28 vendors on contract with DIR, and it is a wide range of GIS service, software, and data providers. And all of these vendors up here are great, and I encourage you, if you do work with these people already, then use the contracts. It'll save you a bunch of time. Or if you would like to partner with any of these vendors, using the contract is an easy way to get work done. And you can find out more and get links to their contracts and go to the DIR page and see what types of products and services they have listed. All that is listed in their DIR contract page, and you can go to the StratMap section of the tenorist.org and then go to the StratMap contracts page at that link below and see what's there and see if one of these vendors has a service or data that will benefit you and your agency. So just to give you an idea of how the contracts have been going over the past 3 years since the new cycle was started up, it's been going well. I think we have done over 20 million in sales through the contracts since 2021. As you can see, there was a lag where there wasn't any software, but that was predominantly because Esri was still negotiating their contract with DIR. But the past year, they've done quite well. And surprisingly, something we saw this cycle is that hardware sales are up. So the green are those hardware sales. And that's great to see that more GIS hardware is getting out there and being procured through these contracts. And yeah, we're also seeing, overall increased number of purchases in the state. So it just shows that there's been great contract adoption across the state. We always like seeing these contracts get used. To give you an idea about who's using the contract, it's predominantly local and regional governments. They have a significant lead on a lot of these. So for any DIR vendors, those are going to be your heavy users for these contracts. We've had some pretty strong use from state agencies as well, increasing over the 3-year course. We've also had out-of-state entities use the contract. Just to let you know, other states can use this contract. Any government agency that's outside of Texas, other than federal government, can use these contracts, as well as some nonprofit organizations have been using these contracts as well. So we're really pleased that these contracts have been doing well, and we definitely want to continue these efforts at the state. And have wider range adoption of these contracts. To give you an idea of where in Texas these contracts are being used, this is the distribution, this is a heat map we created that shows where in the state they're getting used, and it very much resembles the population centers across the state as well as some of the other areas, and shows pretty good wide adoption of the contract. So we're glad to see that. But yeah, questions for the community. Are the contracts meeting your procurement needs for GIS at your agency? We definitely want to hear from anybody if they have any comments about that. Has anybody used the DIR contracts?
Oh, not a question.
Yeah. But yeah, if you use the DIR contracts, we'd like to see. I'm just curious to see who in the crowd has used them. Okay. Yeah. Couple, few, good. But yeah, are the contracts, I saw.
Sorry. We use them all the time. They're
Okay.
extremely
Yeah. Would you like
Great.
to expand on that a little?
Sure. So the city of Austin, I'm Jackie with the city of Austin. I've been doing most of our data purchases for the last several years. But basically, if you're a government, and this is the way I describe it, you can correct me if I state it incorrectly. If you're a government agency, everything's been pre-vetted. So we don't have to go out and do full solicitations. So really, we just procure our requirements, scope of work, and funding, and then use these contracts. And it makes, we can do purchases in weeks. So if you have all of that in alignment. So it's extremely helpful. I've never had to do a full solicitation, and I never want to. Because, I'm sure maybe there'll be a moment when I will, but so far this has been wonderful.
Good, great. Another thing we're very interested in with the new, with the DRR contracts potentially opening at the end of next year, we really want to know, are there any software or hardware vendors that are currently not on contract that you guys are using that you would like to see on contract, so we can do outreach to them and potentially get them on the contract to make things easier for you? Yeah. Sure.
Hold on, Brett. Mike, come on.
Kind of entail?
So I think, and I'd have to dig into it more, but it's more like survey equipment, like RTK stations, as well as drones, sensors, mobile LiDAR sensors, all those kind of things. Those are on the contract, and you can find them.
Yeah, Altera, who was here this week, they are also on the contract. So hopefully we can get Bad Elf on there as well. I'm not sure if Nick is here today, but for next year.
Yeah,
next
I'm actually
time.
meeting with
Looking at
Bad-
you, Ecopia.
Yeah,
Good to get it.
and that's a great thing. And I know that we've been making our rounds, and we've talked to Bad Elf and a few others, and I think everybody's gotten waiting for it to open, to get on.
Or come on as a sub to any of the primes. That's a quick process in our view.
Yeah, but if there are software any GIS software that you guys are using that you would like to see on the contract, so that getting those renewals or buying those new licenses, it very much simplifies that process for you. So if you have those, please reach out to me and let me know, and we'll try to get them on contract.
Joey, one more question.
Sure.
Do you guys have contracts with folks that do, like, say, the support for some of the bigger open source projects? So, like, you know, if you wanted to buy support with Red Hat for servers that you have running Linux, is Red Hat on the contract, sort of a thing?
They're probably on a different DIR contract. Okay. Yeah, we do. There are some vendors on the DIR contract who do like GIS health checks, or they'll come in and like set up your GIS systems and organize your data for you, build geodatabases, do all that type of work, and organize your GIS data. So there are support type services like that on there. And then, yeah, I guess, oh, yeah.
Joey, on the third bullet down
Yeah.
on missing resources,
Yeah.
forgive my ignorance, is there any thought about staff augmentation being added, specific, you know, GIS professional staff augmentation being added at any time in the future? Or is staff augmentation already there?
I think there are companies that offer like generic like GIS services, and they list it as like, you know, you can hire a photogrammetrist to do a set amount of work, and they have those types of services on there.
There's a staff aug contract for GIS in the state of Louisiana that's been very effective for the 22 companies that are on it.
Oh,
Thanks.
cool. Yeah. But yeah, if there are any resources or new technologies that you'd like to see integrated into the DIR contracts, please let us know. We'd really like to build this out to, you know, support the state of Texas and all the agencies.
Joey, can you talk a little bit about the fact that the contract can be used by other states and other entities and that kind of thing?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we do have some out-of-state entities using. I think this last year we had 6 entities from out of state use the contract. You know, I always, anytime I'm talking with any of the vendors or any of the, you know, out-of-state entities, I always encourage them to say, hey, we have a contracting vehicle that you can use. Really simplifies things for you, so, you know, please, you know, feel free to use it. I think all it takes is a 1-page agreement with DIR that just says you'll abide by their purchasing rules, and that's it. It's very easy to use. So if you have any, you know, if you're a vendor on the DIR contract and you have some entities in other states and they're having trouble with contracting or something, you can always reference the DIR contracts as a possible solution. Yeah, Courtney.
If we go to the website and look at the DIR contracts, is there an outline of what services are provided by each for us to research?
Yes, so if you go to that strat map page and then under each vendor you'll see the vendor contract, and then you'll see a DIR contract link. And if you click on that DIR contract link and you go to their contract page, and on the left-hand side there'll be a link that says contract documents. If you select that contract documents, there'll be an Appendix C, which is their pricing index, and they will have all of their services and products listed on there, and it will show the discount that they're offering to use the DIR contract as well. And so you can see what services and products they offer.
You're also welcome to consult with us at any time if you just want to say, hey, I'm looking for someone that does this, you know, contact me or Joey, and, you know, we have a pretty holistic, good idea of what they, you know, provide.
Yeah, if you let us know, we'll let you know the vendors that we know offer those services. We're always happy to help. That's our job. All right. Any other questions? If not, I will go ahead and pass it over to Lauren Kirk, our imagery specialist, to talk a little bit about imagery and a few other things for the state.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Lauren Kirk. I am the imagery specialist at TxGIO. I'm going to give you guys a couple updates regarding our imagery service program and our brand new land cover data that is soon to be delivered. So Imagery Service. The Texas Imagery Service is a paid participant imagery subscription service where we deliver 6-inch natural color imagery for the entire state with an update schedule aimed at about every other year. The imagery service is delivered to the participants via a WMTS or WMS link that can be brought into ArcPro, QGIS. You can also put it in web apps, web maps, however you want to ingest it. There are about 20 different imagery layers that we have in the imagery service that go back to 2011. And the imagery service is available to all Texas government agencies or entities and their contractors doing work on their behalf. Joining is very easy and can occur at any point in the year. So just to kind of give you an update on the most recent, we currently have a statewide 2022-2023 6-inch acquisition that is currently publishing right now. I'll show you a status map of that in just a second. But that is very exciting. We're very excited to have that coming in, and that will be joining our, like I said, 20 other layers that we have in the service, and our latest statewide prior to that was in 2020, and then we have done some periodic urban collects of the 14 major metropolitan areas in the state. Our most recent of those were in 2021 and 2022 respectively. So this is just kind of a screenshot of what the users will see if they're using the imagery service through the Giza platform and not necessarily pulling in the WMS links. You have your list of layers here. The most recent will be at the top, but like I said, we do encourage people to really use the WMTS layers to get the full benefit of that 6-inch resolution, but this is also just a nice visual. So going back to that statewide 2022-2023 acquisition, it is currently rolling out, as I mentioned. All of the blocks in green are now live, so if you are an imagery service user at the moment, this is all brand new imagery in the service right now. And those last 2 blue blocks, those last 2 blue blocks, we do expect to be live by the end of next week. So it's full statewide, yay, go check it out. It's really awesome. So like I also mentioned, it is a paid participation service. So this is a breakdown of the cost tiers depending on the size of your entity. So for state agencies, there's about 5 levels based specifically on the amount of usage that the agency will be using. We also have pricing for state universities, whether it's just like a geography department or the entire university. We also have pricing for regional agencies, councils of government size agencies, and local entities as well, like your city of Georgetown, for example, just point that out there. But if you are not a current user of the service and you would like to take a free 2-week spin of the service, you can request trial links at the tnrs.org main website. There is a Texas Imagery Service project page. Click that red, I think it's actually orange now, link button, and you can get some free trial links there. And I also do want to quickly plug that sometime in November, we're still hammering out the details. If you're not a current participant but you want to learn more, we are going to have a webinar to talk about the pros of the service, and we're also going to have some individuals from state agencies, regional and local entities who are current users of the service talk about the use cases that they're using the imagery service for. So more details to come on that. I don't have a ton to give you at the moment, but let me know, shoot me an email if you're interested in attending that webinar, and I can get your name on the invite list for that. So these are our wonderful 42 contributing partners. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a participant. And please, if you are interested in joining, let me know. I want to add your name to this list. And so just before I pivot into my next update, I just want to ask the group, what are your imagery needs, and what kind of services would you like to see in the imagery service? Questions, or any other imagery related questions that I can answer?
Hi, thank you. My understanding is that the hexagon imagery is usually leaf off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there an interest in collecting more leaf on imagery at that resolution?
We actually haven't had a specific mention of interest in leaf on for that resolution, but I think the nape is actually not 6-inch, sorry. No, we haven't. Most people are really in the business of wanting leaf off these days, so as much as possible. And that's leaf on is much easier to capture throughout the calendar year.
What would be the reason you limited the license to government agencies?
That's a good question. Gayla, can you help me with that?
Sure, no problem. So the Imagery and the Texas Imagery Service is licensed per hexagon, per the content provider for that level of pixel resolution. We do maintain at the Texas Geographic Information Office public statewide imagery. It's just at a little bit coarser resolution through the National Agriculture Imagery Program. So that's the reason, and it comes down to cost as well. The partners that you saw on the screen are all paying participants into the imagery service, and that helps us to be able to maintain that service for the folks that are the participants. But we do maintain the public domain imagery as well. I think there was a question over here.
Oh, we got one over here. I'll jump in real quick, but you guys have, Lauren and Gayla have heard me talk about this plenty of times, but the request that I always come back to is a more robust back-end management system for managing access URLs inside a large organization. So I work for TxDOT, and we're, I think, still the largest user by a large margin, right? So we have a lot of different links that we use and distribute out to our users, and the method I use to manage all those links is not probably not the most ideal system internally. So anyway, a more robust system that we could use to have direct links per user instead of per group would be really handy, and just a way to tie into Ping or some other system that verifies users as part of an organization and can just distribute an on-demand link per that session or whatever would be great.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all part of my next couple steps, so I might want to talk with you later. Thanks, Travis. I appreciate it.
I just wanted to ask if you could go back to the slide that showed your partners.
Partners?
Yeah. Or I guess that one. This one. Thank you.
That's all.
Jackie?
Guess I could have thrown it. Oh, thank you. Okay, hi, Jackie again, City of Austin. So just along the lines of imagery, we've always been interested in leaf off because we calculate impervious cover from that. But I've been hearing conversations lately about leaf on and damage assessment, especially after February storm and things like that. So I don't know if this is really something for TNRIS or for the community at large, but I've been starting to poke around and ask questions, and I'm like, is there a way we could have a service that's on-demand flyovers after those situations? Because it seems like most of the companies are driven by the insurance agencies, which is fine. But if the insurance agencies aren't reaching that criteria to get someone out to fly next day, maybe there's a mechanism in the future where we could subscribe to some shared service statewide and say, oh, Austin lost, 10 million trees this week. Can we get somebody to fly over? Or, oh no, San Antonio, this thing happened, or something like that. So just something to think about. I don't know. It just seems like it's a need.
I got a comment on that one. Actually, I was talking to Planet yesterday, day before, I can't remember. I was talking to Planet about possibly establishing a kind of on standby sort of contract for that exact reason. I had a chance to, bring this up with a couple of emergency managers before to say, why do we wait to something for it to happen and then all of a sudden you're scrambling to try to get something going? And so that is something that we are going to be looking on in the next year to just get something, if there's a way to just get something on standby where no money changes hands, but we are in the system. So as soon as we make a phone call, it happens. And then at that point, it works. So more to come on that. But yes, that's been a topic.
Right. Raise your hands if you'd be interested in something like that from the state. Great. Thank you.
I just need
with specific counties where we are on standby when we have suspected hurricanes on the coast. So we're familiar with doing that and can talk to you more about that.
Great.
That's great. Thank you for that, Jackie. Any other questions with imagery before I jump over to land cover?
Yep.
Rio Grande Council of Governments used to pay for the aerial imagery, and I do see that CSEC is paying. So are we under that umbrella to still get the updates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But the email hasn't been sent though yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That is coming soon.
Thanks. Cool.
Okay, awesome. We're gonna move on to land cover. So this is a very exciting topic for me. I'm really, this is a long time coming. So TxGIO has been working with NOAA on a 1 meter land cover pilot of the Houston-Galveston area with around 20 land cover classifications. Usually at the community meetings, this is kind of the extent of the slide I've been presenting, but we do have a deliverable timeline now. We are expecting this data to come through in December, and as soon as we get it, we will put it on the data hub for free access. But just to kind of go into depth a little bit more, so NOAA has been producing coastal land cover data for decades. Some collections in the country go back to the 1970s. The CCAP program within NOAA is the authoritative source for land cover data in the United States. They coordinate nationally with the USGS and other federal agencies. And historically, most of NOAA's land cover data has been derived from 30-meter Landsat imagery with a typical update cycle of about 5 years. The latest 30-meter land cover that NOAA produced was in 2021, and NOAA is very hopeful that that will be the last 30-meter land cover data set that they produce, because they are trying very hard to pivot to the 1-meter model, which I'm going to show some examples of here in a minute. And of course, with that improved resolution comes much higher accuracy and much better decision-making for projects at any level. So just to kind of break out their kind of phased approach to this program, in phase 1 in 2020, they did capture impervious canopy and water features at a 1 meter resolution. There are currently about 59 counties nationwide that are available for download on NOAA's Digital Coast website, which is right there. Texas is not up there yet, but I've heard that Texas will be up probably in the next 2 weeks. So we will make an announcement about that, but also check out this website just to poke around. It's a really good website. Phase 2, of course, was the 1 meter land cover. The Houston-Galveston area was just one of several pilot areas they were working on, but pertinent to us here in Texas. And like I mentioned, it will be delivered this December, and then moving forward, phase 3 will be the pivot to the full 1 meter product with an expected update cycle of every 4 to 6 years. So this status map, I'll get out of the way, shows all of the counties that are included in the phase 1 water impervious and canopy collection that will be online very soon. So definitely check those out. And then this is the status map that shows the 11 counties in the Houston-Galveston area that are going to be included in that 1 meter land cover pilot that is expected in December. Just throwing this up for clarity and transparency. These are around the 20 land cover classes that I mentioned at the top. I do think it's important to note that not every single land cover category on this slide will be present in the Texas data. For example, snow and ice, not very common in this state, especially around the coast where the pilot is, but just showing you guys so you know. And so these next couple slides I really like. They're just more of like a visual representation, of course, of how much the data is improving. These are all going to be Texas examples. So here you can see, this is the Houston Zoo, 30 meter versus 1 meter. Look at all that extra detail. So cool, so shiny. I love it. And then again, pivoting to a much more rural area, this is in northern Waller County. You can't even pick up homes and streets and communities in the 30 meter product, and now you're picking up even small little stock tanks now. So love it, love to see it. And then, of course, on the coast, which is always can be prone to severe changes, especially like coastal erosion situations, being able to now discern docks and ports and little, tributaries that are coming in and out is just going to be so important moving forward for people who are using this data to make more informed decisions for flood analysis, climate change impact, urban planning, you name it. This just, again, imagery versus land cover. You can see if you're staring and comparing like I like to do, it pretty much captures everything. It does a very good job. And then this slide, again, just like I mentioned, better data, better decisions. These are just a few use cases that this land cover data could be helpful for, but the list honestly could go on. Like I said, monitoring change over time, environmental impact assessments. This will be super critical for flood modeling, and that is very important to our agency, the Water Development Board, so we're very excited to see this. And moving forward, TxGIO is very invested in seeing this data set expand beyond the 11 county pilot area to as much of Texas as we can get, and we can't do that without interest and participation from our community. And so if anyone at any level has any interest in this land cover data and getting it, into your area and your county, let us know. Talk to me. I want to hear about it, because then we can have some meetings and make that happen. That's just what we do again at TxGIO. So my last kind of closing questions are: what are your land cover needs? What do you consider high priority? My email is here. Please email me with any questions as it relates to land cover or imagery, but turn it over to questions if you got them.
Actually, a comment. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot here as a private sector agent partner. But anyways, Acopia actually developed that land cover, so I thought I'd give a little bit more context that may answer some questions. First off, the data that it's derived from is the same imagery that you guys have access to, so it will line up really well with that hexagon data. The other piece to it is we actually derive that data using the high resolution imagery, so it's derived using those 6-inch pixels that you have access to, and it's derived in a vector format and then transformed to that 1 meter data set, which is made available as a publicly accessible product. She's correct. The data is done. They're just waiting to release it, so they're kind of finalizing a few things there. And then the only other aspect that I'd add to this that may yield additional value is we very much recognize that other people have different interests with data sets created like this. The 1 meter product is amazing. There's tons of great use cases, but because the data is derived using that 6-inch pixel, there's still that vector data access, which is somewhat of a higher resolution product that may benefit your agency in addition. So I know with other states that we've worked with, we talked about NSGIC and things like that, there's been partnerships where other agencies can help add funds to this, get access to a higher resolution product, but then also promote the 1 meter data set for a larger access to your constituents. So just a little bit of additional information. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yes, it does. Any other questions?
Yeah, Scott Friedman with the Texas General Land Office. The area of highest priority would be the entire coastal zone. This is fantastic. So thank you for this work. Yeah, all the counties contained in the coastal management program boundary.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott.
Hello, hi. This is Sanjay Negi. My question was about the broadband infrastructure mapping. So I'm very new to this, and I'm hearing a lot about it. So can you talk about how 1 meter resolution data would be helpful for broadband infrastructure mapping?
I actually don't have the answer to that question. Maybe Miguel can. I'm looking at Richard, who's looking at Miguel.
Maybe we can talk after this. Thank you.
I would venture just to say that the impervious cover that's identified from the 1 meter land cover is then helpful for identifying where broadband infrastructure can be used for mapping. Yeah.
Any other questions before I hand it off?
Right here.
God, these things terrify me. Okay, so this is maybe not land cover per se, but I'm looking at your lowering flood insurance rates. Is there, I guess, which version of these different imagery sets would be useful for identifying high-risk areas for wind. Because, you know, we talk about flooding. Flooding's a big one, but for your homeowner who is impacted by a hurricane, there comes to a time when you have a argument with an insurance company as to whether it was a rain-driven flood or a water-driven flood. And if we can figure out where those areas that are at highest risk of wind, right, we know that the coastal wind insurance program is a thing, but we're getting straight line winds in the valley, we're getting straight line winds up north, and so that would be a useful piece of information, and I'm hoping maybe you could tell me which one of these is the right one for me to start looking at, or is this something that we need to think about for the next iteration? Please don't.
That's a good question. I don't think we have data pertaining specifically to wind. That's a really interesting data set to think about, but I would, if you're trying to model like risk assessment, I guess, I would kind of go with Parcels and this land cover data set, maybe even some LiDAR, just elevation wise, but I think I would default to Parcels, honestly, amongst the data sets that we have.
I think that, yeah, and adding to what Lauren said, that sounds like an analysis project. So where you would put several different data sets together and be able to analyze those to get those probability areas. And so I would offer Miguel in our office as our head GIS analyst, and so he would be someone to talk to about something like that. Miguel's going to add a little bit.
Maybe for wind, you can also use the Texas Mesonet that has I don't know, hundreds of stations around Texas where you can check historic wind and also the wind that is currently happening.
What was the age of the imagery used for the CCAP data?
They were using the 2020 Texas Imagery Service imagery. Yep. Right. 2021, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
Also for wind data, this is the site, I just went and made sure it was still out there. But NOAA has a wind climatology site, 10-meter historical wind data that you can go down and pull down data from for CONUS, for continental U.S. So that's a good source for the actual wind field data that you could use in conjunction with the layers that they're mentioning to do that analysis.
Do you need that repeated? Are you good?
Okay. Anybody else before I hand it off? No? Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Ellen St. Romain and I'm the still pretty new elevation specialist. But I'm gonna talk to you guys about LiDAR and some LiDAR classification stuff that we have going on. So LiDAR has been collected in Texas since 2001. We have over 80 data sets on our website spanning back to that time because of changes in technology. The quality and the standards of that data have changed over time. But yeah, if you go to the website and you are clicking on your area of interest, it'll have a little pop-up for you and you can see how many collections we have available in your area. The current best available LiDAR across the state is comprised of federal, local, and state acquisition data that you can see here. The data ranges back to 2014, and we're actively in sort of a maintenance mode where we're trying to update the data regularly. So we have our previous year's project. You can't see this slide at all, but the dark green that you see here in the center of Texas and over near El Paso, we collected this past winter season. And then this upcoming LiDAR season, we are covering areas that were last flown in 2014, 2015, and 2017. And those are the black areas up there. In addition to the current LiDAR projects we have going on, we're also updating some USGS LiDAR data sets to include these 5 additional classifications. This is the status map as of the last forum, and now we are up to about half the state's coverage. So, yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, so if you're interested in helping to fund some of these initiatives, reach out to me, let me know. We definitely want to get the whole state updated. This is just an example. So this is kind of a suburban area without those 5 additional classifications. And then when you add that in, you can see just how much value that adds with buildings and culverts and the 3 vegetation classes. So like I mentioned before, active LiDAR projects we have going on right now. This past flight season, we flew and collected LiDAR in the El Paso, Brazos, Clear Fork region. That data is in-house and going through in-house data processes, so that'll be up on our website very soon. I know Texas Parks has been waiting for that, so that's exciting. And then the 2 LiDAR projects we have coming up are these. We have a 3DEP grant through the USGS that we got, and then a Central Texas LiDAR project in Hays and Williamson County with partners there. Yeah. You know, just barely starting this year's projects, but we're always thinking about the future, and we are hoping to collect data to cover some 2016 LiDAR, which is now, you know, the oldest LiDAR. But this is our primary area of interest for the future. So if you are working in one of these areas or interested in acquiring updated LiDAR in one of these areas, again, reach out to me. I'd love to coordinate that with you. This is just a cool project we wanted to highlight from earlier this year. So some TPWD surface water folks reached out to Joey Thomas earlier this year and let him know that Steinhagen Lake had been drained for work on their dam, and they wanted to collect LiDAR to get to be able to get the elevation information for the bottom of the reservoir. So within 10 days of that phone call, Joey had initiated a project, and they were able to capture LiDAR for the majority of that area. And we just wanted to give a shout out to the DIR contracts and all of our awesome vendors that we have through that, because this sort of emergency LiDAR collection would not be possible without that process. So yeah, huge shout out to them. Yeah, so if you ever have a situation like this where you need some LiDAR collected quickly, that is something that we can help you coordinate. So, yeah. I am going to pass it off to Joey for the next elevation update for you guys.
Oh, thanks, Ellen. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the new StratMap initiatives that we've been doing with elevation data. So in 2021, we started collecting bathymetry, coastal bathymetry, through the StratMap program. And we started off with the Laguna Madre. These projects were in coordination with our Coastal Sciences group at the Water Board. We completed that project, and we offered that data to NOAA, and they accepted it and integrated it into their blue topo and their nautical charts. So we capitalized on that success, and we got together with the Texas Integrated Flooding Framework, the TIF, and they had a bathymetry workshop back in 2022. And as part of that bathymetry workshop, we established priority areas for the coast. And this past year, we used those priorities to collect 4 areas of interest along the Texas coast: the Nueces Bay, the Lower Galveston Bay, the Houston Ship Channels, and the San Jacinto River, a portion of the San Jacinto River. And we initiated that project earlier this year. And most of the survey has been completed. They're still working on the Lower Galveston Bay now currently. But it's been a great success. Again, we're having we had the same vendors from the Laguna Madre win this project as well. And that would be Geodynamics, which is an NV5 company. And that data is going into its final data development, and so hopefully we'll be able to have that data out in early 2024. But an interesting part was during the acquisition of the San Jacinto River, they were doing a multi-beam, and they found a truck, which is always very interesting. And so we did notify the local authorities, and they sent a dive team out, but that was the last we heard of it. So.
Did they find a dead body?
No, who knows? I don't know. You have to ask the Harris County Sheriff Department, I guess. So, but yeah, we're excited about continuing these efforts for the state of Texas. We've knocked off quite a few of our priority areas, but as you can see, there's plenty more. And funding for this is somewhat limited, so we definitely would like to have partnerships for these projects. So if you need bathymetry data or you're interested in it for your area and you happen to have one of these areas as a priority, let us know. We do have funding. We will be doing cost shares for this, so let us know. We'd love to partner and continue to collect coastal bathymetry for the state of Texas. Another new initiative that we are working on is elevation-derived hydrography, or ELI-Hydro. So this is something we're very much looking forward to as the next iteration of hydrography data, similar to how we're going from the 30-meter land cover to a 1-meter land cover. This is kind of that same process of higher resolution, better representation of these surface water features. We're actively seeking partnerships for these projects. As well as areas of interest. So we're still trying to determine where in the state would be the best place to start these processes, and where partnerships are available is going to definitely drive our priorities. And we want to hear from you guys. So if you have a priority area, even if you don't have funding, but an area is a priority for you, please let us know. We like to identify those areas that would be the greatest value to the state to start collecting these elevation-derived hydrography data sets. And we actually did start a pilot at the Water Board. So we were able to tack on an elevation-derived hydrography pilot to one of the flood studies that we were doing for the Lower Clear Fork Brazos Huck 8. And they recently sent in a draft of that data, and so that's what this draft data looks like. And it looks pretty good. We were very impressed with it, and we intend to take this data and hand it over to the USGS and get it integrated into the 3D hydrography program as soon as it is completed. And so we're anticipating that that will become available in 2024 timeframe, and hopefully we can get that ingested into their new ELI-Hydro program. And just give you a, here's a representation of that data, which is very impressive. As you can see, in the red are the NHD plus flow lines, and then those blue lines are the new elevation-derived hydrography flow lines. So you can see not only is it more spatially correct, but it's significantly higher resolution in how those streams are being drawn. And they actually conform to the elevation data, which is very good. So we are definitely looking forward to continuing these efforts in the future, so please let us know. We'd love to do ELI-Hydro across the entire state of Texas. And then, Elle, if you want to come back up here, and we can answer any questions you guys have about elevation data.
Wait for the microphone.
Joey, the bathymetry data, what's the resolution of that y'all are working with?
I want to say it depends on the areas of interest, but the spacing for those I think was between 25 and 75 meters. It's fairly high resolution, even where they're doing the single beam. I think in the Nueces Bay it was predominantly single beam, and they had a spacing of 25 meters, I think. So it's pretty good data, and we're looking forward to getting those better bathymetry data sets in.
I can't hear you. I'll repeat the question. What's next in the line of bathymetry? Right. As far as the bathymetry priorities go, I think it just depends on partnerships. Like wherever people need that data to be created, within this list, I think were the priority areas that were determined. So this is the.
Yeah, and so these were ranked. They were ranked based on a number of factors that we received during the TIFF bathymetry project. But yeah, at this, we still have some of the higher priority ones. But that's not to say if somebody contacts us with funding and they say, hey, even if they're down at the bottom of this list, if they have funding and they want to partner with us, we're more than willing to jump them in line, so to speak. But as you can see, we're not going straight down the line. It's kind of more grouping based on, what we feel is the most, prioritized, or where our partner agencies have come to us and said, hey, we'd really like this area. And as long as we have justification for pursuing it, we'll get it done. Yeah.
Joey, on the elevation hydrology, will it come with attributes like NHD or something similar, like intermittent, permanent, perennial?
Yeah, there's a new set of attribution for the EDH, and Claire talked a little bit about it the other day, but there's they're having this new main stem ID is one of the new things that's being integrated into it. But it has I think it's a more simplified attribution compared to the NHD, just to make it a little more easier to use and ingest. But yeah, it also has Z values for all of the attribution as well, so you can do actual elevation modeling with the hydrography features themselves.
Real quick, you also had a question about the number of LiDAR collections in the Rio Grande Valley, is that right? I don't know the exact number, but there are quite a few. They don't overlap precisely with each other. There are some along the coast, there are some that follow the Rio Grande. I would say a handful, if I had to guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think predominantly right now, it's mostly the USGS South Texas, which is a 2018 collection.
If you go to our website and go to the elevation portion of our website and you look at the LiDAR availability map, if you keep going that way, it's broken. If you click on the area specifically that you're interested in, you'll get a pop-up that shows how many collections we have in that specific area, this pop-up. So you can kind of scroll using arrows right here, and it'll tell you the flight year and other information about each collection. Yeah. Hi, Courtney.
Hey, so Joey, I've seen you grow in this role. Is bathymetry data still your favorite part of what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for the LA Hydro as well. I was very interested in it back when it first started getting talked about, and we had tried to get a workshop going back in about 2016, but we were never able to really make anything come from that. But as we've moved forward with our LiDAR acquisitions, we've tried to position ourselves better with having the boundaries be HUC boundaries now, as well as tightening the break line specifications and including culvert classifications, so that we can ensure that when we make that transition, the data will be there to support it. So that's predominantly what I'm really excited for in the coming years. But bathymetry is great too. It's nice to fill in those gaps that are covered in water with elevation, and we can, hopefully one day have a complete elevation model for not only the topological features, but the bathymetric as well.
Joe, you mentioned that the EDH data had Z values too. Are they using a consistent vertical datum, and will that be a standard? And
you might have to discuss that with the USGS. I would assume it would probably be standardized, and it'd likely be part of their conflation process of taking that data and pulling it into their EDH schemas and that sort of thing. I'd imagine it'd be NAD 83, NAVD 88 type stuff, but I'd have to really dig into the LA Hydro specifications that exist currently to tell you the answer to that. But yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, the vertical For the most part, the vertical projection systems for the LiDAR is usually all pretty similar. It's usually the horizontal projections that are different for most of the LiDAR in Texas.
Anything else?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
How many feet down do you think that truck was underwater?
Well, they were collecting it with multi-beam, so I would imagine it would need to be at least 4 meters or so down.
We'll have to look at it when
So
we get
yeah.
it. Cool. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah,
we're
and-
gonna pass it off to.
One more thing I wanted to get some community feedback on is we're looking at doing mosaic data sets of the DEMs for Texas, and we dabbled with DEMs as a service, and it didn't really work the way we were hoping it would. So then we started thinking more along the lines of DEMs as mosaics, and we'd really like to know, is that something that is of interest? Is doing a statewide mosaic, a TED, so to speak, for a Texas elevation data set, or HUC-based mosaics? What flavor is it 1 meter good? Is it 3 meter good? 5 meter, 10 meter for a statewide data set? What are y'all's feelings on those sorts of projects?
Do you mean for visualization or computation?
Computation.
Okay. I think that's an important distinction too there for that.
Yeah, these would be downloadable mosaic data sets that are a compilation of the DEMs.
I can't remember quite off the top of my head where we have a 10-meter statewide already. I feel like that's already been provided. And so I would advocate for something with more resolution if we were going to go through the effort to make another data set.
Yeah, I think that the last statewide mosaic is a 2013 national elevation data set. So it's dated would be the issue. So, would having an updated 10 meter be valuable, or would it be more valuable to go down to a 5 meter, so to speak? But then at that point, that's a massive data set.
Excuse me, my name is Nathan Brock with the Water Development Board. We're currently involved in base level engineering studies for the entire state, and a lot of the contractors are developing full HUC 8 based terrains, and I know they're available through the USGS when they're finalized. I wondered if we could just be able to use some of those, and they are of different resolutions, but I think our technical standards are going to be 1 meter going forward. So if we have those, I think we could be able to utilize that for the state. And I know it's something contractors are already developing.
Yeah, and for those flood studies, though, aren't they hydro enforced? That would be so those would be a different flavor. The DEMs we're talking about creating are for hydro flattened, and those hydro enforced ones are slightly different. But there's no reason why we can't have both. So good to know.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Bennell with the Texas General Land Office, and I was wondering, what is the outer boundary of the coastal bathymetry? Because we manage the state waters 10 miles out into the Gulf, so I was just wondering if that would be covered.
So we're not doing anything outside of the bays. So we're just doing the coastal bays themselves. We're not doing anything past that because that tends to be more NOAA and Army Corps and GLO for the most part with their coordination with the Bureau of Economic Geology. So yeah, at the moment we're only acquiring coastal bay areas. So there's no, for outside of that, I would say talk to NOAA because they're the ones who are actively collecting in the Gulf of Mexico. Anything else?
Thanks, y'all.
Good. Thank you. And we'll pass it off to Clayton to talk a little bit about land parcels and address points.
Hi, everyone. I'm Clayton Rainier. I am the new Geographic Data Officer at TxGIO. I started my role a few months ago, and part of that will be taking over the land parcel and address points from Lauren, who's been working on them for the past 3 years. So just a little update or refresher on what these data sets are. Back in 2017, it was identified in the TxGIO GIO report as a high priority data set level, or data set by all levels of government. Because this data is collected from across the state from different sources, there was a need for a standardized schema. So in 2019, after that schema was developed, the first formal data set was released. So just to give you an update on the 2023 acquisition season, both data sets saw an average of 10 million features this time. These are the two schemas that were developed for land parcels and address points. They can be found on our website. So if you're interested in what information is in those tables, you can go and pull it up there. So an overview of the 2023 land parcels. The data acquisition began back in January of 2023. We worked with local county appraisal districts and third-party vendors to collect these data. This data set record contains just below 11 million records, and it is now available on the Data Hub as well as a web mapping service. The 2023 address points again began in January of 2023. We worked with the state and regional 911 entities to collect these data as well as emergency communication districts. This data set has 10.3 million records. And again is available on the Data Hub as well as the web mapping service. So one issue that we've been encountering with these address points specifically are a lot of gaps in the data that's being submitted. So for instance, in Dallas County, in green, we have a large area of address points that are available, but you can see in red, everything around there hasn't been submitted. So we'd really like to try and improve that this coming year. The same with the Corpus Christi region. There's a lot of address points that are missing around there. And so I just want to kind of highlight why or what benefits there can be from submitting these data points. So there's a group out of the Texas Department of Emergency Management, Center for Water and the Environment, Oak Ridge National Labs, and Esri that have developed this pin to flood application. And it's an application that can develop instant flood maps for first responders. It works by a first responder pinning a point on a map along the water's edge where flooding has occurred. A flood inundation will return, and the address points can be extracted that fall within that polygon. That way it gives responders an idea of what resources need to be allocated and sent to the region. But however, if we go back to that Dallas region, one area that had a gap in the address points being submitted was this University Park and Highland Park region. So if we just kind of modeled a hypothetical flood along this creek that runs through Highland Park, we can see the inundation polygon that gets returned. However, there wouldn't be any data that could be extracted from that polygon to sort of allocate resources to that area. So there's a big benefit when address points get submitted, especially for things like this. In addition, we have been submitting the address points to the National Address Database since 2020. The latest submission was last year in July of 2022, where there were 10.5 million address points submitted and 9.7 that were accepted into the National Address Database. This year, the 2023 data was submitted in October, and we're just waiting to hear back on those results. Some goals for the land parcel address points in 2024 are to improve coverage and to hopefully fill some of those gaps of missing data that I showed you. And then we'd like to further automate the ETL process across the counties using FME. That's sort of something I've been working on learning for the past few months. So that's the goal for 2024. And then just to highlight another project that I will be taking over from Lauren, and it's a multi-agency project with the GLO, called the Regen Project. It started back in April of 2021, and the GLO is working on creating a publicly available original Texas land survey dataset, which will be hosted on TxGIO's Data Hub. With that, I just have a couple community questions I'd like to pose. Are there anything that could be done to the land parcel address point schema? Could it be expanded upon that would help you all out? Is there any additional information that could be added? And then what other data sets would you like to see? Are there any statewide base layer data sets that would be helpful for everybody? Is there a robust boundary data set that could be helpful, or any high priority boundary data sets that would be helpful? So yeah, just love to hear about that.
I have a mic here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was specific to the University Park area in Dallas County. So I've seen, based on my experience, Google Maps and OpenStreetMaps, mainly Google Maps, have really high resolution data for address points. And after purchasing a house here, which is a new build, I'm seeing a lot of inconsistencies in the data from counties and other government agencies. Then why not just use Google Maps API or ask Google for that missing data instead of relying on counties or other districts? And second data source would be USPS. They have pretty good address or other postal services. So yeah, basically, why not just ask Google?
I don't know for certain about that, but I think the issue with getting the data from Google comes from a distribution standpoint. I don't know if we can distribute that data out for public download. I don't know if there's someone.
Yeah, I actually do have a comment on that. So we have been working, we have talked to Google about, potentially doing some sharing of information across, give them our information, have them give us information back to see if there would be a way to do that. We've been talking to Amazon as well. And that's happening at the NSGIC level, at the national level. It's being discussed right now if that can happen. They don't license that information. That's proprietary to them. It gives them a competitive advantage when they have it, so they don't necessarily want it out there. The other issue with that is, people trying to geocode across it or whatever can also be a concern of theirs, because then you start to worry about things like, if something were to happen and it didn't go well or something, who's liable? So there's all those kinds of things that happen when you try talking with Google and Amazon and so forth. So it's not out of the question. We're talking to them and we're seeing if there's anything that we can work out. So that would be, that would be one reason we can't do it. The USPS, they will not do it because that's not what, they are not into selling their data. They're not into doing any of that. You can go to things like Motorola Solutions or other entities that kind of mine that data. But you can't get it from USPS because we've attempted that and they just shut us down. It's just not even something they do. So, it's not from a lack of trying and lack of keep working on it. But in the meantime, most of it comes from the source that actually produces it. The problem is they're not always equipped to provide that data out. Some of them are still concerned about, personally identifiable information and trying to secure data, but we all know this information is public domain and so forth. So if you saw your county on there, or if you don't know why maybe your county wasn't contributing that information, or you have a solution to that, we would love to know more about that. Some people have produced information and given it to us, and then suddenly one year they just decide not to. Could be changeover of personnel, or maybe just a misunderstanding, but this information we're not going to send mailers to everybody with this information. What we're trying to do is save lives and save property. So I think the message just needs to be put out there. So that's my comment.
Yeah, we talked to Clayton and John Dougherty and Jeremy at Parks and Wildlife this week about justice of the peace boundary statewide, and I was just curious if any other entities need JP districts for any purposes, regulatory purposes or other interests.
Anybody else need justice of the peace boundaries? Yes, yes. Where's the other mic?
So, hi, everybody back here. My name is Janny. I'm with I wanted to address the addressing question. So I work for the city of Austin. We, many years ago, entered into a local agreement with the county that we are the addressing authority for Travis County. And so, for one thing, Google Maps isn't a reliable source. They have many errors, including street address points and street names themselves. So what happens is, I don't know if you attended the presentation earlier from Jackie and Salman earlier in the week, but we're the addressing authority. What happens is we send the 911 address that goes into the dispatch system to CapCog, and so that disseminates to whatever they need to do for dispatch. So then that data delivers to all the other Google Maps, Apple Maps. So the record of source is really the addressing authority. So either Williamson County, whoever does the addressing. So don't always rely on Google Maps. And then we also deliver to USPS as well.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Roxanne. I work for the City of Austin. And my question is, what other data sets would I like to see? I really would like to see, as I enter the appraisal districts account across the all counties around Travis, is that we all are in coincidence. And what are we doing? Is there initiative to help all the appraisal districts be in one coincident boundaries together? So for instance, if there's an address and we've got Williamson County and Travis, or Travis and Hayes, like in one parcel, I've got a lot of questions on that, and how can we be like all in sync, coincident between each when they all are in one parcel lot, for instance, with that address, and how can we address that? Because I have a lot of questions on that from other customers, and as I want my data to look wonderful for the city, how can we do that for all appraisal districts around our counties?
I appreciate that question. I'm honestly not 100% sure how to answer it.
I can comment on, or Lauren wants
please.
to comment on that.
That is the goal, to like have it all be, nice clean edges and stuff. But unfortunately, at the moment, there's any kind of legislation or rules that force the county appraisal districts to, figure out the disputes in the corners and edges. And so what we're trying to do in the capacity that we can, and what we will continue to do, is just do outreach and educate them on that. And so we will let them know that, hey, we've seen these issues in geometry or in attributes and parcels and stuff like that. And all we can do at the moment is just educate and outreach until we're able at some point maybe to get some kind of hard rule in place that forces them to rectify it. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And we use those examples that you just mentioned where it just causes this like hairball of nastiness. So please help us help you by getting it hammered out.
It's a huge issue, and I think we'll be speaking with the Comptroller of Public Accounts fairly soon, and just let them know, we're aware of that for sure. I think this needs to be our last question or comment on this section, because we're starting to run a little low on time. So we'll let StratMap finish up, and then if there are any other questions for StratMap, let's move those to the end of the session or get with Joey and team afterwards. So go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, so kind of related to that, and this also to answer your question, have we ever gotten it ironed out who's the source of truth for county boundaries at the state agency level? Because that would affect these appraisal districts too,
Ryan
right? If we had a source of truth at the, right?
That's GLO's issue. Scott, you want to speak on that? No, let me just comment on that. That is that question that, I was hoping we could go all day without, but thank you, Brent, for bringing that up. No, the real issue is that is an issue, and it's kind of at that point where we are trying to do this the best way. We talked about legislating things. Texas doesn't necessarily like to force people to do certain things, nor does it ever really work very well when you start to try to legislate them, because then they have hard feelings and it causes a problem. What we're trying to do is with our what I'm hoping we can try to do is if we change the county boundary, it causes a backlash. It doesn't mean it's not correct, but it causes a taxation backlash that nobody really wants to get into, specifically the counties that it affects. And the reality is, I think you could solve it with parcels to some degree. The problem is the different counties have decided to just agree upon how to tax specific properties where those boundaries are unusual. And they're good with that. We're just gonna do that. But if you start to actually move the line around, all of a sudden a piece of property is now owned by somebody else or whatever you get into. And it's just a really sticky situation. We brought it up. It isn't that we don't want to solve it. It's that I just don't think they want to solve it either. But it causes a problem because what boundary are we going to use? There's a boundary that you use for representation, which is what we're doing. But the reality is it's not necessarily correct. And the counties are aware of it, but they just have agreed to how they're going to tax those properties that fall within that boundary. So we've thought about trying to go legislatively to do this stuff, but I can only imagine what's going to start to come out of that process. It's just going to be a fist fight at the end of it all. So the answer to your question is it's a really problem, and I still think it's a GLO issue, but I'm not. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Scott.
Can I just state for the record that the land office has the original record of the county boundaries, the way they were laid out when the state was settled. We have nothing to do with it now. Leave us alone. The land office doesn't have anything to do with it.
The history.
I'm just trying to spread disinformation to take the heat off me.
Great, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Bye. See y'all.
Okay, next we have Maria Castillo Escobar, our newest member of the Texas GIO team, here to talk about the Historic Archive.
Good morning, y'all. Thanks for welcoming me. I am the newest member of the Research and Distribution Center, just here to give y'all some updates on how our projects are going. We're starting out with the Historic Imagery Archive Scanning Projects of 2019 and 2021. They are fully scanned. We did create the data warehouse for better accessibility of these digital archives. As some of you may have seen in our data tenors website, we do have an S3 bucket key. We're going to enhance that to link over to the data warehouse so that you may better access these archives. This QR code will send you over to the data warehouse if you would like to scan it and maybe forward it to your email. It's not very mobile friendly, just letting you all know. We're going into the phase 2 of our georeferencing project, and we officially kicked that off with Certex, who will be georeferencing about 10,000 frames. This will include historical aerial imagery collections that are unique to the TxGIO and prioritizing urban and metropolitan areas. We have now live a new collection. It is our 1981 statewide NHAP collection. It is available in color infrared, in TIFF format, and at 75 centimeter resolution. This project ran from 1981 to 1986 specifically for our state, and it was a part of the USGS's National High Altitude Photography Program. Looking into the future, we are now going through and organizing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer collection. It was donated to us in both physical and digital format. It is partially georeferenced, and just looking through it, we've noticed the areas of focus are primarily coastal areas and water resources. Continuing on with our USDA collections, we're going to build out any that are incomplete by ordering those in high quality, focusing on post-1954, and we're going to make them free to the public through our TxGIO data warehouse. We do want to ask if there's any areas of high priority or even years to have available as imagery, or that needs to be georeferenced. Also, if y'all have any feedback on our data warehouse, we're definitely open to any comments or suggestions.
Thanks, Maria. Time for one question or comment. Sorry, Brent.
Real quick comment. I think, and this may be a question for Joey, really, is we kind of have an idea of which images that of our historical archive are used the most, for the most part, correct? Primarily probably urbanized areas and maybe corridors and things like that, right? So in my mind, it would seem to me that our biggest efforts would be focused on those exact areas. You go to the major populated centers first, reference those, and work your way down through the corridors, like the major highways that connect those cities, and try to get a buffer around that, and reference those as probably your first lead. It also too the heat map that I think Joey you showed, that kind of shows where things are just hot in Texas, I think can almost just translate a little bit to the areas that are popular too. So it seems like we could just use that. Unless anybody has any other thoughts. There's a question actually back there.
I work on TxDOT project, and actually the populated region, you almost have people's knowledge on the location of history, and it's those highway, TxDOT highway, not really highway, TxDOT roads in the remote region, and we normally see TxDOT bridge crossing the river and see if the history of change, the river changed, what is the bridge's risk, improvement for future. So we need to know the history. So I actually, using your historical, some of the data in the past, that's what I feel, some of the rural TxDOT bridge area actually more useful for us. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then another priority that might be useful, we're doing some stuff with the Museum of South Texas to kind of elicit stories from folks that were involved in historic hurricanes down there. And so areas that may not necessarily be heavily urbanized, but that were impacted by historical storms might be another really cool priority to add in, because we found that, like for Beulah, that was another big one that we were looking for data sets so we could use as a baseline, because they're going back and remodeling the storm surge from that with AdCirc and things like that with Clint Dawson and Odin Group and everything. So those kind of historical images are going to be really useful for us if we can find them for the areas, and if they're coincident, either as before or after kind of images for where we've seen these historic storms.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria. Okay, next we're going to transition over to Joe Sepulveda for information from the Texas Geographic Information Office on our geographic infrastructure and technology going on.
And yeah, certainly if there's any follow-up for the StratMap team, feel free to reach out and they'll be happy to answer your questions. So my name is Joe Sepulveda. I am the Director of Geographic Infrastructure and Technology. So over the next hour or so, I will be discussing cloud-based server infrastructure with you. Get ready. No, I'm just kidding. So we're more affectionately known as GIT. So what does GIT do? GIT, as part of the Texas Geographic Information Office, really supports our core values as a data clearinghouse and supporting much of these StratMap initiatives. So StratMap will acquire and coordinate all the data. GIT will, in a nutshell, make that data available on the internet. We will vet and help select technology solutions that work for our community and ultimately hear from you about usability and functionality with that data. So if you were here last year, I used a picture of Anchorman to describe our team, which was only 4 individuals at the time. You can see we've grown exponentially, and we've done a slight reorg within GIT as well. So our application development team is led by Chris Repka. We have 3 developers, Ben Bright, Levi Harmon, and Rob Dennett, and we also have a new web administrator, Azia O'Brien. We have our system administration team, which really are our core GIS infrastructure and technology experts, with Ryan Mitchell, Chelsea Sidenblad, and Joseph Rincon. And then one pivotal aspect that we've added in the past a little over a year is institute the implementation of project management. And so how can we be more efficient, more sustainable with our initiatives that we're undertaking? And that initiative is led by Vanessa Escobar. So we are a very diverse group, I will say the least. This photo of us is at an escape room last year, and we had a really good time. Not everyone has a GIS background. In fact, most don't. So it is really key for us to get those different perspectives and apply them to those overall GIS initiatives we have. So with that said, I will bring up Chris Repka. Chris, if you can please come up and expand a little bit on some of our application development initiatives. And Chris loves to speak publicly.
Thank you, Joe. So my name's Chris Repka. I'm the manager of the application development team for TxGIO. And kind of our approach that we're adopting for the past year and probably the next year moving forward is kind of a maintenance priority. So onboarding new team members, cleaning up software dependencies, and really focusing on modernizing our existing applications. So it takes a little bit of an initial time and effort investment, but once that time is freed up and we've kind of streamlined these processes, then it will lead to freed time for our development team and a focus on new features and services. So one of the things that will impact y'all moving forward within the next year is our move to a new content management system for tinris.org and a redesign of that site as well, coming near the end of FY24. And then also in the foreseeable future, a redesign of data.tinris.org from the ground up. So that includes backend services and things of that nature, potentially. One final thing I'd like to talk about is new URLs coming soon. So as you all know, we rebranded to TxGIO, and we've selected 2 domains that we may use, but we haven't selected the primary domain just yet. One of those is geographic.texas.gov, and the other is gio.texas.gov. So more news on that coming soon, and we'll be sure to keep you all updated on that. So with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Chelsea.
Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea Sittenblad. I am a systems administrator with the GIT team. I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the changes that are happening within our GIS team and what that means for the community as a whole. So as Joe mentioned, our team has nearly doubled in the past year or two, so we have a lot more resources, and we're increasing our support within GIS at the water board. So before we focused a lot on just TxGIO resources, but we've identified a need in helping out our parent agency. So we are kind of tapping into that and building out enterprise GIS at the board. And we are working to position ourselves as not just a data resource. I think historically we've been, the data providers, but we want to branch out a little bit and start looking into offering more technical support and technical resources to other agencies, to other organizations, so that we can help bolster the GIS community as a whole. So instead of just providing data, we're hoping that individuals will want to reach out to us and do some knowledge sharing, come to us with some problems, GIS problems, and work together to see what kind of solutions we can come up with and leverage our partnerships that way. So one of the other projects that we're working on internally, we're looking at, and this is very beginning stages of this project, we're in the research phase of figuring out if we want to put together a TxGIO viewer. And so what this is it's a viewer for all of our web services and data to kind of live in one web map. So individuals have access to multiple data layers that we offer all in one place. Instead of having to go through the data hub, download those data sets and ingest them into a software on the user's end, we'll be able to put that data on the web and make it accessible to those same users, but then also expand it to users who maybe don't have those GIS technologies to ingest the raw data. So like limitations in interacting with the data, like I said, you have to download it now, but we'll, with a viewer, we'll be able to kind of mitigate that. Yeah, so it is very much in the research process. We are actually doing outreach to figure out what the needs for this are and what the usability would look like. And so more to come on a possible viewer as we start to get some more information from the community. So I'm going to hand it back to Joe.
Thank you, Chris and Chelsea. So I want to go over an initiative that we have. We started this early last year and just sort of kicked the tires on a needs assessment for a statewide geocoder. It turns out there was a lot of interest, which is great. The primary kind of input for that was our solutions group, comprised of several state agencies, and we were really just brainstorming on what that might look like. So going around, meeting with each agency and determining, okay, how and why and where would you use this? And ultimately, that brought us to concluding that, yes, there is absolutely a need for a statewide geocoder. So this statewide geocoder would have the same model as the imagery service that Lauren outlined a little bit earlier this morning. It would be subscription-based. We would have a user model. It would be a hosted model as well. And what would be accessible is an API, essentially. And how you use that API is really up to that agency. So it can plug into a system integration. You can use that independently for single and batch geocoding and make that hopefully a one-stop shop for an authoritative addressing resource. So Clayton had mentioned our statewide addressing data set. We do intend, at least for this initial version, to use the existing TxGIO addressing schema, and then also with the hopes of developing a prototype by the end of FY24. So that would conclude in August 31st of 2024. At that time, once we have that prototype, we'll again share that with the partners who have expressed interest and get some additional feedback on that prototype and tweak as needed. And then it's likely that we would go out to bid to build out a more robust model of that. So the hope is to, again, utilize some of the relationships that we have for our existing addressing data set, but also pull in different vendors' addressing data as well, and potentially do some sort of authoritative, I hesitate to use crowdsource, but authoritative user input throughout the state too, so we don't just have to wait for an update once a year, but we can potentially make that as dynamic as possible. If there's a new subdivision south of Austin, we can get that as in real time as that allows. So that's something we're definitely striving towards. And then lastly, just with the initiatives you heard today, we really want to hear from you. I know that was something that was stressed with the StratMap group, and it's no different with the GIT group. You know, everything that we do is for this community. And so it's only as good as what you guys put into it and what you tell us that you need. So we really want to make enhancements to existing and future applications. We want to make new solutions based on the community's needs, and we want to be more forward-facing and engaging in the community. So we do have a general contact form on our TNRS Data Hub and TNRS.org, but feel free by all means to email me directly, and I'd be happy to chat about some of the challenges you may have, or just, you know, a friendly discussion about the weather. So with that, thank you all very much. And I think we just have a quick few minutes for any questions. I will not be offended if there are not any.
Go ahead, Joey.
I was going to ask, who will have access to that geocoder? Will it be public facing or?
Yeah, so that still needs to be determined. We do know that access behind the geocoder, at least right now, will likely be behind a paywall, similar to the Imagery service. It will be subscription based. Now, it's too early necessarily to say what that format will be. I think that's really where the solutions group will be integral in telling us and guiding how that pay model looks. I think it's key that we've seen the success of the Imagery service model, but we don't necessarily need to tie it into that, meaning you can have the geocoder without the imagery and vice versa. So we do want to make it sort of an a la carte thing, but we want to make it as sustainable as possible with a proven model. All right, well, thank you so much. I'll be around all morning if you need anything. And with that, I'd like to introduce Laura Sepulveda to talk about our branding events and engagement.
I think we have one quick comment question. No? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, sorry. If you remember, just let me know. Okay, so my name is Laura Sepulveda, and I feel like the theme of today has been like, we want to hear from you. And so please feel free to reach out to anybody at TxGIO with comments, questions, suggestions at any time. But also, we have a team now at TxGIO who is going to be behind kind of orchestrating some more structured engagement opportunities. So as well as like the informal engagement that we all love and do all the time, we're looking to put a little bit of methodology and structure behind engagement so that we can solicit feedback from y'all as well. And that team is called the Design, Innovation, and Marketing team at TxGIO. I'm the manager of that team, but I am joined by colleagues Eric O'Brien, Space Longoria, and Gwen Cruzy. We are a multidisciplinary team. As you can see, you know, we have UX, UI design, we have cartography and GIS specialists, and we have marketing. And so really our goal on this team is to evaluate, progress, and promote TxGIO products and services and support this community at all, using all of these services that we have. And we've talked about it all day. You've seen our name change. But I did want to acknowledge, like, we did rebrand from TNRS to TxGIO in September of this year. That was through the legislature. And it is an ongoing process. So rebranding comes in many different forms. There's stages, there's steps. I just wanted to point out, where we're at in that process for all of y'all. So we have reviewed and documented kind of existing branding of where TNRIS was and existed that we know of. And we are in the process of making a plan to switch those over. Some things are easier than others. Where TNRIS was written on our website, that's a quick change. We can make it say TxGIO now. Like you saw, URLs are a little bit different. So those are in the works. And all the different other branding aspects are going to be implemented over the next year or so. If there are any branding items that you come across or that you have on your websites, because TNRIS has been around for a really long time, please let us know if you need help or resources in updating those. Or I encourage you to make the change yourself if you have that ability. We are very excited to announce we are creating a new logo for TxGIO, and we're working with a creative agency to do that. We will be sharing that new logo as soon as it's developed with all of y'all in the next coming months. And then you will start to see this branding once it's created and implemented in all of our marketing efforts. And so that's the way that we kind of engage with you on the branding front. So in our emails, on our website, with that redesign of tinris.org into our new URL. And now I'm going to pass it off to Gwen to expand a little bit more on the marketing aspect.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, y'all. Good morning. I'm Gwen. I'm the marketing specialist here. I do just want to say a quick thanks to all of you guys for being here and everyone who was a part of our forum this week. You guys are our audience. Everything we do is in service of you guys. So I definitely like to second what Laura was saying. We want to hear from you guys. Definitely feel free to come find me after and we can chat. But some things that we are working on upcoming are just a marketing strategy framework for us to operate within, and that'll really kick off with some market research at large, audience research. We have so many different initiatives here that you've been hearing about this morning. They all have different audiences, so really being able to define those and get granular with the details there. Additionally, we are doing some brand identity work, like Laura just mentioned, with our new logo. And that's not just superficial. Those things do have to deal with our voice and who we are. We'll definitely determine our goals and the channels that we use to reach out to you guys through. So right now, that's Twitter, that's X, and our email marketing platform. So we'll be evaluating those things and seeing what's aligned with our vision. And then lastly, nothing's static. We'll definitely, make observations and adjustments along the way. And, some of the benefits of this will be clarity and consistency in our messaging. You guys will know what to expect from us. We'll be utilizing our resources effectively. And this space moves really fast. So if we have an existing framework ready, we can make adjustments to move with the times. So with that, I will hand it over to Space to talk about user experience design.
Hi, everyone. Is it still morning? Yes. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Space Longoria. I'm the UX UI designer at the Texas Geographic Information Office. I started UX UI design about 3 years ago and went straight into the public sector. I always wanted to do something that was meaningful and made me feel good about what I did. So while UX UI isn't something that's as traditional in government work, I am working very hard with my manager, Laura Sepulveda, to make sure that we can show people in government and public sector that there's value in UX and UI. So if anybody is wondering I'm so nervous, sorry. I'm like shaking, talking fast. I'm gonna.
Doing great.
Thanks, y'all. So for anyone wondering what UX UI is, so UX stands for user experience, and UI stands for user interface. I feel like when people hear design, they probably think more of the user interface side. It's about making things look appealing, about having that aesthetic, having logos, branding, buttons that match and make sense. So on the other side, you have user experience, which is more so what I want to talk about today. And that's kind of the journey of going through a product, interacting with the service, and making sure that it's as smooth as possible and that it makes sense and that it's meaningful, right? So I put a maze here because I felt like it was kind of the closest thing to GIS and maps. So I might get a little bit on your level here, but when I think about UX, UI, there's a lot of words on the screen, I feel like, right now. So when I try to simplify it into people that may not be more familiar with it, I think of it as my job is to help you guys get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And if you're thinking, okay, that doesn't really apply to me, how many people interact with at least one application or website a day for their job? Okay. How many interact with at least 3? How many interact with at least 5? Yeah, okay, there's still a lot of hands going up, right? And all of those different products or services, they all have a different goal, right? Or you'd only be using one. So how do I get you from point A to point B as efficiently as possible? Sometimes it's as easy as just showing people the way. Like, hey, this is the path. And they're like, oh, great, that makes sense. Sometimes we can simplify it. We can knock down a wall, and it makes it easier. My developers are probably like, knocking down a wall ain't so easy when it's on the back end, and it's right. But when you go through the process of talking to users and getting that feedback and them saying, hey, this simplified path makes my life so much easier, we can bring that back to the people that are making those decisions and say, hey, this is what people are saying. And they say, okay, maybe we should take the time and the resources to knock that wall down. So when I think of people in GIS, this is how I imagine the applications and websites that you're using, right? Sometimes they're really complex. And when we're designing and developing things, or really not even in the tech aspect, sometimes when you're up in leadership, you get those rose-colored glasses, and you're kind of more like a mouse in a 3D maze, rather than a 2D maze like this. And you can't see that high-level overview of how people get through things and where they might get stuck. So how do we do that, right? We've been saying it all day. Talk to people. Talk to the people interacting with your products and services, just like we want to talk to you guys. I'm gonna flip the script a little bit, telling you guys, talk to your people, talk to your users, see what they're saying, see if you're still giving benefit or use out of the products that you're offering them. Maybe they need something completely different. Maybe times are changing. They need something more innovative. We're talking about, Z-axis and digital twins. Things are constantly evolving, and we need to keep up with that and make sure that we're still providing the best products and services to the people that need it, right? So these are the different ways that our team is kind of tackling that problem. Again, so I said I've been in this for about 3 years. I started as an intern. I don't know if we talked about our internships at all, but we got internships. And I started off as an intern and ended up becoming full-time. Love my job. I wouldn't want it any other way. But it's still very new, and we're learning, right? So the 4 main ways that I can encourage even you guys, you don't have to have a UX, UI designer on your team, but you can make steps, those starting steps, to engage with your users and get that feedback and make changes that actually make sense and are meaningful. So that first big part is before anything even starts. It's research and discovery. Defining those goals, understanding audiences, establishing that clear vision, making that maze as simplified as possible, or maybe it's super detailed and they just need the line to be drawn for them. So number 2 is wireframing and prototyping. So it's visualizing the structure and the interactions before you throw it into the developer's hands. But also, it's collaborating with the developers too. if I'm designing something for weeks on end and I give it to a developer and they're like, hey, I can't do this, then it's 2 weeks wasted, right? So we want to make sure that we have those open-ended discussions, not only with our users, but with our teammates as well, and other teams within our agencies. So another thing you can do is usability testing. You might have a product that's already out there. You want to see how it's working, if it's working at all. So another way is getting feedback and making iterative improvements. Maybe you don't want to launch a whole thing at first. Maybe you want to do it in segments so you can really focus in on specific things that you want to make sure you get right before you move on to something else. And then the last thing is post-launch. Maybe you have something that's been in the works for a few years. We've talked about our Tenorist.org website. We've talked about data.tenorist.org needing a redesign. Sometimes things need to be reevaluated, and that's okay. And to that point too, you might reevaluate it and find out, hey, we don't need to spend time doing this, or hey, it works as it is. But that's the whole point of reaching out to people, is getting that feedback that's actually valuable, that makes impactful changes. So with that being said, you might have seen my name in your email box, because I am desperately trying to start those relationships with the GIS community. I'm not a GIS person, but I work in GIS, so I'm trying to build these relationships so that I get actual feedback from people who interact with these products, because I don't. So we talked about the viewer and the research. If you have gotten an email about that, you can please email me back. And if you're interested in being someone who wants to give us feedback about the products and services that we are working on, like we've said all morning, please reach out to us. But with that being said, I'm going to hand it back over to Laura. She's going to talk about a couple of more projects that we're working on. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Space and Gwen. Okay, so moving on to a few other projects in our team's wheelhouse. So if you attended the forum last year, you may have seen a presentation that Richard and I gave about starting a TxGIO Store. And I just wanted to give an update on that. It is still in the works. It has not happened yet, but it is not dead. So turns out not a lot of state agencies start online stores. And so we have been navigating what that looks like and what our options are to be able to create. We don't want to start, a store that isn't up to par with like other online experiences and stores that you frequent on the daily basis. And so we are in the process of working through platform and online payment options, and we will provide additional updates as we figure it out. We have developed a first phase of geocentric art products that may be the first items featured in the store once it's up and running, but we are open to other ideas and suggestions, if you have them, of what you would want to see in a Texas GIS-based store to serve y'all as the community. And then I'm really excited to give this mapping update for Eric O'Brien on our team. And so we have a few, looking into next year, a few big mapping initiatives that are going on. If you've been to tinrist.org/maps, you may know we have over 600 maps available for a free download. And those are refreshed on a 5-year basis. And we're coming up on that refresh date. And so next year, Eric is going to be working on a large undertaking to go into all of those maps and update the base data in them and refresh that data so that they're going to be brand new. And we will be making a few styling updates as needed for some of those. It's not going to be a complete remake where you don't recognize them. But here and there over the last 5 years, some things have changed. And so we'll make them look new for all of you. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is the state flood plan for Texas. This is brand new and it's going to be published next September. And Eric is working really closely with that team to develop a series. There's a lot of maps that go into this flood plan. And so he is developing the maps that will be displayed in the printed copy of that document. And so keep an eye out for that as well. And if you didn't know, here at the fourth quarter Texas GIS Community meeting, we held 3 other meetings this year. And so here are some images from previous meetings. Thank you for attending. We love the turnout that we're getting, and we've seen increased numbers at each one throughout the year. Before today, we had over, in just the first 3, over 530 attendees come to these meetings. And so we are really happy to see you all here, and please keep coming and letting us know, like what content you want to hear about in these meetings. We've noticed that leaving additional time for roll call, we've seen additional interactions where the community member is wanting to share their updates in these meetings. And so should we, let us know, is that something you love as part of these meetings? Do we need to increase that time? Sometimes we share job opportunities. Let us know if that's something you like. All of these meetings up until today have been hybrid, so online and in-person attendance. Yeah? Okay, hybrid is good. And then just to let you know, we record all these meetings and then make them available for anybody who's not able to attend on our YouTube channel after they've been closed captioned. And so that's another thing we do. If you want to be invited to these meetings and you're not getting invites already, please be sure to leave your email address on the paper sign-in outside and let us know, and we can send you an invite when the next ones are. Speaking of the next ones, these are going to be the community meeting dates for next year. Locations have not been identified yet, but these are going to be the dates. We will put them on our website, but feel free to take a screenshot or a picture of this. So the next one will be in January 17th, 2024. And we normally have these the third Wednesday of the month that the quarter falls on. There will be an exception this year in July because we didn't want to overlap with the Esri UC. And so we moved the July one back a week, which will be great because we can hear, updates from anybody who attends that event. And we don't just attend our own events. So these are just a few pictures of events where you may have seen us that were hosted by the GIS community that we've gone to in the last year. There were over 17 so far, and it's only October. And so we love coming out to your events, and we love being able to support the GIS community. So if there's an event that you're hosting, let us know if you'd like us to come, if you'd like us to present, if you'd like us to support it in some way, reach out. ATXGIS Day, yep. And then our team is hiring a marketing intern. This is a paid internship. If you know any current or recent graduates who you think would be a good fit and are into marketing and GIS, you can go to this tiny URL link, and this will give you a PDF download of the job posting and the application instructions. Let some people take some pictures. And then just to close it out, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who helped plan, worked at, and then attended the GIS Forum this year. We think it turned out really well. We are very excited about everybody, but we will continue to improve it. And so if there's anything that you super liked that you want to make sure keeps happening in future years, let us know. If there's something that you don't think went over so well, please let us know because we can make adjustments year to year as we move forward. And then next year's dates are going to be, the forum will be happening again next year, October 21st through the 25th, here, likely at the Pickle. So, with that, I'll move on to open discussion, everybody's favorite.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Laura and team. Yes, we're at open discussion. We've gone over a lot today, right? So we've talked about the forum. We've talked about National States Geographic Information Council. We've talked about our strat map data acquisition projects and discussion there. We had infrastructure discussion from Joe on statewide geocoder, tech support that we're looking to provide. And then, of course, rounded it out with design, innovation, and marketing. So now's the time where we can open it up for anything else.
I got just one quick comment to add to what Laura said. So that the GIS Store, which is something that is really, to me, a high priority, and we really want to get it going, that the proceeds of the store support this event. So I just want you to know, the forum, and all education activities that we have. So it's just a way to try to offset the cost to you guys, allow us to continue to build the best forum that we can have with the best speakers and the best facilities and so forth, without passing the cost on to you. So that's really what it's designed to do. And so, I just want y'all to keep that in mind. So when you have an opportunity to get something as a gift or as a retirement or whatever for an individual, I hope you would consider something like that, from the store, because you just know where the proceeds are going. None of it comes into any of our pockets or gives us raises or anything like that. It all goes back into here. So just wanted to add to that. So anybody want to start? Issues?
Agency updates.
Thank you. Because of y'all, thank you so much.
For my whole Esri career, we've supported the Oklahoma GIS Day at the Capitol, and they do that intentionally to get in front of legislators, and the lieutenant governor comes and speaks. And I'm just wondering if you ever thought about copying something from Oklahoma?
I missed the last part.
Repeat your if you ever thought that we would what?
Oh, copy something from Oklahoma?
No.
No, that's not true. We love to
Absolutely
copy
not.
things that work well.
No, so just to add to that, there has been stuff like our agency's done, and I'm going to get this wrong, so if anybody's with the board here, y'all can correct me, but we've had like Water Day over at the Capitol. Yeah, right? And so our thought is to tie on to things like that. It's hard to kind of get on there and do a bunch of these, but if the water board's making that effort and being successful at it, then what we want to do is be a part of that. The other thing I really wanted to bring up too is we are making some really good inroads. The water board has an amazing relationship with some of the folks at the Capitol, and I'm talking the legislators, and I think we've earned their trust. And a lot of the things that we've been talking about implementing and doing and moving forward, specifically relating to things like the school stuff that we talked about earlier, we're trying to get in front of legislation that we know is going to be coming. And we want to get these prototypes and proof of concepts in for sure by the end of summer next year, and get it in front of our legislator before these bills start piling in, so we can get ahead of the situation. Because otherwise they'll approve a bill that probably systematically doesn't work for us or doesn't work the right way. But if we can get it in front of them and then they say, well, here's a bill, we're going to run it past TxGIO before we approve it to see how we can implement and improve that bill. And so we are trying to work to get more face time with them. And that usually happens at either the water conference that we have or these GIS water days, and also through our government relations group. So anything else? Space.
My question is actually for Joe, who just handed this to me. We were talking about our name change and switching our URLs. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about, because I had quite a few people this forum ask me about URL changes and if that would affect like bookmarks or like existing things that they already have quick access to, and how that would affect people and kind of what we're thinking in terms of URL name changes.
Yeah, so the actual domain of our websites will be pretty straightforward because we'll just set up redirects. Like tenris.org and data.tenris.org will live for a very long time. It may not be public facing, but through redirects, you'll still get where you need to be. We are not going to make changes to our API and our web services lightly. We know how impactful those can be, and we're still gathering information about what the true impacts of that will be. So, for example, if you have a REST service URL bookmarked, our intention is to swap the TNRIS name for the TxGIO tag within that URL, obviously breaking the bookmark that you have. So there will be impacts. We will try to get ahead of those as much as possible. Again, probably through our community meetings such as this, but also the solutions group, to determine how to best communicate those. So again, from the sites, pretty low impact, but anything that's bookmarked from like our data hub, for instance, with a specific data set, that likely will change, but not without communication, either through Twitter or email blasts and notifications on our websites as well.
Is Solutions GIT, or is that a different group?
No, sorry, the solutions group meets quarterly. Quarterly, and that's comprised of various state government organizations.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Courtney can go first, she says.
Okay. How's that county data set coming? The authoritative counties data set that we've been talking about for years.
That's what
No, you did? Oh, man. I'm sorry. I had to take a phone call.
this is
They all gave me dirty looks about it.
Okay. Well, now I got all the dirty looks. Okay. Thank you.
I'm trying to spread disinformation, and so I take the blame off myself.
Technically, it's GLO's problem.
Jenny wants to go last.
Oh, okay. Jeremy.
Yeah, Richard, this is Jeremy, Texas Parks and Wildlife. Y'all did a great job selecting the speakers this week.
Thank you.
Very informative. I'll be reaching out to a lot of those presenters for additional conversations. In regards to that county topic, the county boundary topic, I'm really interested on your position now with NSGIC on how other state agencies or government are addressing their jurisdictional boundaries similar to us in county.
Absolutely. And actually, that NSGIC is the entity that I'm looking forward to see how other people have handled these kinds of things. And to be real honest with you, it hasn't gone cleanly for the ones who have tried to do it. And the ones who want to do it are still, we're all having conversations about the best way to do this. We do know this is an issue. We do know it's an issue. We can rip the Band-Aid off. I think we could try to set legislation if we wanted to. We just are trying to find the cleanest way to do this.
Right.
And we haven't figured it exactly out, but we know people who have ripped that Band-Aid off, it's not gone well, and others who are really working towards another option, they're just closely monitoring each other. So we're having more conversations. That is a topic at NSGIC quite a bit.
Sounds like another opportunity for Texas to lead the way.
Oh, absolutely, except I wish we were a little further ahead, because that's the one I don't necessarily have an answer to. But we'll get there at some point.
Yeah, thanks.
To give you one more additional resource on that, I just came from the ERISA Pro conference, and I sat in the meeting with GIOs,
Right.
and Kentucky's doing this right now as part of their legislation, and it is an RPLS certified county data set.
Right.
And so all of those boundaries between them are certified by an RPLS.
Right.
So that takes some of that pressure off, and it's mandated.
Right.
So,
And that's
required.
exactly what would happen in Texas if we were to do this, but it doesn't necessarily solve the backlash that happens. It makes it right. But the other thing I wanted to bring up is, we're even looking at, watershed delineations here at the Water Board. And that's a political hot topic. Just, we have kind of representative watersheds, and then we have the real watershed. And trying to really get those out there, and how to, it's the same issue with county boundaries, just a slight smaller issue, but it causes a problem all the way around. Anytime you move in boundaries that have been used for so long, it just causes a really, really big problem. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. We need to do it. And I don't know if it's something you just slowly introduce until people kind of catch on and do it. Do you rip the Band-Aid off and get everybody upset? It's like beating the hornet's nest. So how do we approach this? And I think it really kind of ends up going to the ledge to figure this out, and then they will debate it, and then we'll have to just determine where that goes. Oh, sorry. One thing I wanted to add to what Joe said as it relates to our name. If anybody references us on their website, like has like a partner page or or whatever, if you know of who is responsible, will you kindly ask them to kind of change our name to TxGIO or whatever? I think we'll definitely have a logo that we could give you here in the next coming months, for that. But that would be good. That would be a good way to just kind of get the ball rolling on this. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes,
when we were coming here, we tried to reference TxGIO on LinkedIn, and we weren't able to because there's nothing to reference. So maybe as a follow-up from after this conference, I don't know if this was brought up already, but you just made me think of a place where people want to reference things in a public forum, right. At least something to tag.
Yeah, if you pass it to your right.
Yeah, we do not currently have a LinkedIn account at this time, just because our parent organization, the Texas Water Development Board, they have a LinkedIn account. And so we post our updates through their account currently, but we are looking into what it would take and if there's value in getting our own account. So more to come on that.
Anything else? Okay. Yeah. Okay. That question came up. So it's about is the water board going to do the rodeo? So the rodeo. There's two issues that happen with the rodeo. One of them is that when we were doing the Geo Rodeo, which is basically the technology side of GIS. It's the coding. It's the more of the geeky side. That came from the issues we were starting to have with that is we were competing with other types of entities that did very similar things. And I kind of felt like we were stepping on some toes at some point. And so our thought was, well, we'll team up with those individuals and we'll kind of unify them into a Geo Rodeo tech sort of thing. But right as that was kind of happening, and we were trying to make some decisions moving forward, that's when COVID hit, and then that kind of sank everything, and of course that depleted all the funds. So if you don't know how the Geo Rodeo worked, the Geo Rodeo was anytime our forum did extremely well, we used the proceeds of the forum to put on the Geo Rodeo because it was a free event to you. And that's exactly how he wanted to do it. So remember I said anytime we get additional funds, we try to put it into other educational opportunities. Geo Rodeo is one of those. Well, we have zero funds. But we do think that those funds are going to come back. This was an amazing, I think, lucrative forum for us at this point. And so if we can get a few of those under our belt, I want to talk to Joe and team about, how can we reestablish a Geo Rodeo, whether it's something we put on or whether it's something we work with another entity that we can put on. So it's on our radar on maybe how we can do this. And I think we probably need another forum under our belt to kind of get the proceeds where it needs to be, and then we can kind of talk about how that's going to work. So it is something we are considering, yes.
And we absolutely want to do it.
Right.
It's a goal of ours to get back. It just has to be, quite honestly, financially feasible to put on the logistics of a free event.
Yep.
I'm curious how many people in the room would be interested in the Geo Rodeo now that you know what it is.
Yep. Yeah, who's interested in a Geo Rodeo if we were to put it back on? Good. Okay.
All of you are presenting then.
Space will take that initiative. All right, anything else? Any other questions? Courtney.
So if y'all didn't meet me, and if I don't already know you, I'm Courtney Rowe. I'm a civil CAD designer by trade at Pape Dawson Engineers, but I'm also a GISP and highly involved in the GIS community and giving back to all of you wonderful people. We have TxGIS Day on November 13th. It's going to be in person at the City of Austin Permitting and Development Center, and we have a great committee trying to put together an amazing program for you all. So if you want to be involved or have an exhibitor booth this year. It's going to be free for everyone to attend and free for everyone to come. So the first people that get a booth, please, we welcome you and your services, and bring your jobs, open positions. We're going to have a job board. We're going to have an ideas board. We're going to have workshops and all kinds of various presentations. Of course, it's themed Experience the Build. So it's all about building your career, your network, and the right GIS for your needs. So if you miss it, especially if you're out of town, visit us at our TexasGISDay.org website. We're trying to get all the GIS days across Texas to be able to share their great events on TexasGISDay.org, and we hope in the future that'll become the hub where you go and look for your local GIS Day events. And if you have a GIS Day that's able to be hybrid and stream their events, then you can actually stream Austin's GIS Day that Monday, our friends at A&M, at UT Austin on Wednesday, and then of course our friends in Houston for their GIS Day on Thursday, where I will also be presenting, so I'll see you, some of you there, I hope. And then I'm highly involved in supporting women in geography and GIS and Eurissa, Texas. And then I don't know, maybe my friends at SCOG have looped me in, I don't know. So be involved in your community and give back. And I really enjoy the connections I've made this year with all of you. And if you haven't met me, come say hi afterwards. Oh, and Janny, my colleague, also has a great new initiative to share.
So hi everybody, don't call me Jan. Actually, I'm part of the planning committees of many of these events, I guess in the local community immediately in Austin. Particularly with GIS Day, you know, when we hit a little bit of a story, when we hit COVID, you know, we couldn't meet in person and there were challenges to kind of, you know, we still wanted to host this event, so the initiative was to reach out to all these GIS days in the state, and you know, we worked with Texas A&M, you know, some of these universities, UT, UNT, some folks from San Antonio, and folks to host some virtual events for the past couple years. And so, you know, what we found is what the university students or the faculty wanted to provide some more opportunities for the students to be exposed to their work and to professionals, so they basically get hired for jobs before they graduate. And so it was a good opportunity for us to collaborate, and so that's what we did for a couple of years. And so one of the initiatives that we saw that was hadn't been done in a few years was to celebrate an individual that had contributed to the community in such a way that made a difference in one way or another. So the first year when we did it, we had, you know, retiring or retired folks. We celebrated Bill Hodge, who, you know, was GISCI, was retiring. We celebrated Kim Ludicky, which I was fortunate to meet before he retired at Texas Parks and Wildlife, and he was a great, actually, inspiration, and the reason why, you know, I definitely nominated him because he actually showed, you know, introduced me to folks on his team, and I was able to speak to him a little bit before he retired, so he was, and really get to know his great, amazing work in the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. So we want to continue that tradition, and so we're trying to reach out to the community to get some feedback on, you know, who have made a difference for your group or your local area. And so if you wanted to nominate anyone, we're trying to, you know, celebrate those people. And so we've tried to, you know, socialize that we're trying to do that, and we want to celebrate those folks. So if you're interested, you know, I'm always on LinkedIn and posting and such. And so if you want to get with me, if you want to nominate somebody so we can actually celebrate these folks, that's something that we would like to do year in year, you know, in the future coming years. And so last year we did Alicia Ortiz, who just retired from Timbers, and so she was our Absolutely. And I guess another thing is we also saw that there was a opportunity to bring in or share the experiences from existing seasoned professionals to new and upcoming interested young professionals. So, but mentorship programs that are extended for months long may not be something that is available time to everyone. So Career Cupid is an event that is 1 hour long, which is something, an opportunity for people to share their experiences, to educate and help these young professionals kind of, discover what they would like to do going forward. So Career Cupid is a virtual event this year, and so if you're interested, or if you know of anyone that's interested, please let them know that they can sign up for this 1 hour event where they'll speak to 3 mentors for 10 minutes each. And it's not a whole huge commitment, so November 14th.
Okay.
And your advisory council. We mentioned, so another thing, it kind of ties into the whole mentorship with outreach. We saw, the community, there's so many individuals that are interested in youth outreach, but there's so many success stories that we should learn from. For example, people that have planned successful events with K through 12. And so the idea is to, if people are interested to share their success stories, we want to kind of meet together and see if we could provide a connection to a network of people that are willing to actually plan these type of events for K through 12. And so the idea is to create a list of folks that are willing to actually do the outreach and provide maybe form an advisory council to host events for K through 12.
Anybody want to comment on that? One thing that you did say that actually resonates with me too, not only just about education, but I don't think we need to do probably a better job at this event, probably acknowledging people, individuals, like career achievements and things like that, awards. And I think that's something we should consider where we get nominations from you guys, and we can produce some sort of at an event, have a little awards, 15-minute awards ceremony sort of thing, and acknowledge people for the individual things that they've done for the community or done for the GIS or whatever it might be. I feel like we haven't done that. We haven't done that, and we need to do that. So, yeah, the great ideas. Anybody else have a comment on that, or on?
Celebrating each other's successes is an amazing thing.
We should. We should do more of that. And as you were talking, I was like, why haven't we done that? So maybe something we'll try to introduce soon. So thank you. We got about just a few more minutes left. If anybody has any other thing they want to bring up, yes, Jesse.
Thank you, Richard. Or what was your name in that little video? The starting.
I don't remember. Ricky Dubs. Just so you know, that came out of Eric O'Brien, who actually would call me that at the office. So it just stuck, and we put it in the video.
And who was that guy that had trouble talking? Like,
LiDAR.
Anyway, Scott pointed to me a while ago when boundary issues were being talked about and that kind of thing. Well, what I'd like to recommend is we have 3 LSLS in our office at the General Land Office, licensed state land surveyors. Anytime state lands are being reviewed, looked at, whatnot, it has to be done by a licensed state land surveyor who's a level above an RPLS. I would suggest that we bring one of those guys in, to do a little talk on boundary issues. I think it would be because that GIS, we had I'm not going to say an old surveyor, but yeah, he was a past surveyor, and he always kept telling me, I said, this GIS map looks like this. And then his response would be, do you know what GIS means? Get it surveyed. So that was always his answer about GIS does not have anything that's accurate in it, which is, it's a picture. It just shows something in some point in time. So, I suggest that we bring one of those guys in. You know who I'm talking about, maybe David Klotz. He's probably the best. He's done presentations at these big surveyor conferences and can do an hour-long presentation on it, but you're only going to give him 20 minutes maybe. I don't know. But I think it would be a good learning experience for GIS professionals to understand, the realm, the issues behind, surveying properties and parcels and whatnot. So that's my suggestion.
That's a great suggestion, and I agree. I agree with that 100%. I do believe we need to get a little bit more to the development and engineering of how we would actually do this. Bottom line is I'm looking at it from a very high level, but maybe we can solve it from the bottom up sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so that would be highly educational for me. So I would like to get with you and let's discuss how we can make that happen. So that's a great idea. Thank you.
I'd add on to that. That should be something you could do at the quarterly meeting too, though. As
Absolutely.
opposed to necessarily at the conference,
Absolutely.
That would be good.
No, you're 100% right. 100%. Space.
I have one.
She'll be in stereo.
Speaking on the community meetings and also about achievements, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the quarterly meeting that we're having right now, although our team did a lot of updates, I think it's an open floor meeting where anybody can share projects and updates and achievements. So if you feel like you want to acknowledge somebody in one of those meetings or just bring up an update on a project that you're working on that you maybe want to collaborate on, these community meetings are a great way to do that. So take advantage of it.
That's the intention of the roll call at the regular meetings.
To add to that exactly too is we'll get a vendor to come in and talk about kind of what they do, and we kind of do that just based upon what our knowledge is and what we think y'all might want. But if you guys say I'm really interested in learning about XYZ, could you get this organization to come in and speak to us? Absolutely, we're looking for that kind of feedback too. So who do you want to see? We'll try to bring them in and have them talk at the quarterly.
So I'm hearing surveys.
Well,
survey to, yeah.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Laura's team has started some of that in the follow-up to the GIS community meetings and in the announcements that she sends to the email list. She's starting to put in a line in there where you go in and fill out, there's a question she asks. So yes, so look for those and please participate.
We're at noon exactly. Again, thank you. This was a long, comprehensive meeting, but it's important. So we appreciate everything. You guys go have a great week, and thank y'all for being here. Look at the crowd. This is fantastic. And
thank you.
We'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.